March 11th, 2021 electronic meeting of the Ann Arbor Historic District Commission. The meeting is being held electronically to protect public health and safety due to the COVID-19 virus and comply with the orders issued by the governor, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and the Washtenaw County Health Department. We intend to conduct this meeting similarly to an in-person meeting. However, please be patient if there are technical issues. Public comment will be via telephone only. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, please call 877-853-5247, toll free, or 213-338-8477, and enter meeting ID pound 978-6401-4515. This information is also available on the published agenda, in the public notices section of the city website, and on the broadcast of this meeting is on CTN channel 16, AT&T channel 99, and online at www.a2gov.org/watchctn. Ms. Thatcher, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Hall.
Here.
Commissioner Quijano.
Here.
Commissioner Beeson.
Here.
Commissioner White.
Here.
Commissioner Epperson.
Here.
Commissioner Fortner.
Here.
Commissioner Rockland.
Here.
You have a quorum. Everyone's present.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. We'll now move on to item C, approval of agenda. There is one update to tonight's agenda. Item F6, 310 South Ashley, will not be considered tonight, and but the public hearing was advertised, so it will be held. Are there any other additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda?
Nope.
None. We will move. The agenda is approved as presented, or as amended in this scenario. We'll now move on to item D, public comment. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about an issue that is not listed as a public hearing on this agenda. To comment on such other preservation matters, please call 877-853-5247 toll free, or 213-338-8477, and enter meeting ID pound 978-6401-4515. This information is also displayed on the meeting agenda and video feed. City staff will select callers that have, quote, raised their hand, end quote, one by one using the last 3 digits of your phone number. In order to electronically raise your hand to indicate your desire to speak, please press *9 on your phone. You will hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. When speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute any television or background sounds so that we may hear you clearly. Please state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. We'll now move on to item E, unfinished business.
We do have a caller with the phone number ending with 534.
I apologize, Brett.
Caller with the phone number ending with 534. You can unmute your phone and address the Historic District Commission for up to 3 minutes.
Good evening. This is Tom Stolberg. I live at 1202 Traver Street, former HDC commissioner. And I'm following along. There's something I'm interested in later on your agenda, but I want to share some news. I live in the oldest schoolhouse still standing in Ann Arbor. We've known that for some time. And I recently discovered that it might actually be the oldest schoolhouse still standing in the state of Michigan. I have some more homework to do to verify that, but I'm pretty excited about that news. I also have some news to share that Mr. Levitt could weigh in on as well. Next Tuesday at the Planning Commission, there's a public hearing on revisions to the accessory dwelling unit ordinance. And I'm kind of curious how it dovetails with the HDC. Some of the new things that have come out very recently well, in the ADU proposed revisions are going to involve getting rid of the lot size minimum, 5,000 square feet. So that impacts some historic properties in some of the districts. Removing the owner occupied requirement for one of the two structures, and allowing up to 800 square foot structures in the rear setbacks, where a garage could possibly be, 3 feet from the lot line, as opposed to an attached addition or an addition, remaining within the standard building envelope. So I know there's standards for historic additions in historic districts, and there's a size in that standard. I believe I recall it's about 50% of the original structure. And I'm really curious how that works in the historic district for brand new accessory structures. Later on, you might be talking about a different accessory structure where there's an existing one, but where there isn't an accessory structure now, and we are adding an ADU up to 800 square feet, detached, how you factor in the sizing of that compared to the structures on the property under the rules of the Historic District Commission. So I'm pretty curious. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments, Tom. It's wonderful to hear your voice again, and we appreciate your comments. Thank you. So now we will move on to item E, unfinished business. We return to this item E1 at 100 South Main Street. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give us the staff report update?
Let me pull up the PowerPoint here. Give me 1 second. So this application was postponed at last month's meeting because there was an issue with the signage, which was internally illuminated. So the sign contractor has brought back a new proposition for the 3 signs. They're no longer internally illuminated. Now they are edge lit. This took me a little bit of time to grasp conceptually, but think of channel letters where the face is opaque, but the edges are translucent. Instead of the whole letter glowing, just the edges glow. I'm not going to go over the history and things that we went over just last month. But the new signs are basically the same signs as the old ones, just differently illuminated. You see here, we've got this almost 9.5 foot long sign on both the north and the east elevations with the Chase logo, now edge lit instead of internally lit. This is the one that would be on the front of the building facing Main Street. Same sign as last time, still attached to the same raceway that would be painted to match the building. And it's mounted appropriately into non-historic materials, just edge lit instead. Chase has provided, the sign contractor has provided quite a few renderings of what that might look like with the edge lighting. It's an interesting concept. I think it's worth trying out. These are pretty small signs, big enough to be seen on Main Street, but this building is just so large that I think that they're certainly an appropriate proportion to go into these storefronts. There are details in the packet. Here's a profile, how they're illuminated, how they're attached. And the third sign was the taller one on the west-facing elevation, way up at the top of the stair tower. That is 60 inches, 5 feet across, and same thing. It's just going to glow on the edges at night instead of the whole thing lighting up. We can refer to those drawings if you need them. These are sample photos of similar installations for Chase. I'm sort of fascinated because these are each a different building, even though they almost look like the same building, and they each have a different sign on them. So it's much like halo lighting, the effect that you get from edge lit signs. So the same standards and guidelines apply that I've read to you at the last meeting. Number 1 says a property will be used as it was historically or be given a new use that requires minimal change to its distinctive materials, features, spaces, and spatial relationships. Number 2 says the historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. Number 9 says new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. And number 10 says new additions and adjacent or related new construction will be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property will be unimpaired. Same design guidelines. I'm not going to go through all of these, but it's appropriate to install signage that's subordinate to the overall building composition and that's compatible in size, style, materials, and appearance to the historic resource and district. So staff does recommend approval of this application and believes that it meets all of the standards and guidelines, and is also an interesting, toe in the water at looking at a new kind of signs that haven't previously been approved in the historic district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioners Beeson and Quijano were on last month's review committee. In case any commissioners have questions, do we have any questions for Commissioner Quijano and Beeson? I'm not seeing any. So would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record. And you have up to 5 minutes. Do you have anything to add to the staff report or review committee report? Looks like we have Jennifer here. Hi.
Hello.
And Tracy.
Yep, Tracy should be on as well. So Jennifer, I'm Jennifer Carr. Thank you. The signage national manager for Chase. We did go back and look at the illumination, and as we talked about last month, wanted to show you the edge lit lighting that we were wanting to propose, and we're excited about it. We like the lighting and welcome any questions that you might have on the proposed. Jill did a fabulous job presenting it. I have nothing really more to add.
Any commissioners? Okay, Commissioner Rockland's with his hand up. All right.
So I'm looking at the section and I'm just, I guess looking from the section and looking at the photos, I think I know how the sign works in terms of illumination, but can you please just describe it just so I'm sure I'm understanding what I'm seeing?
Yeah. So Tracy might need to help me with the technical stuff, but the face is an opaque face, and then the side lights are clear. Well, the part of the sign is clear, and then we'll have the lights around the edges of the sign. Behind, Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong, they're right on the edge of the sign on the interior of it, correct?
Right.
So
the letter is aluminum with, and I can't see it in front of me right now, but I want to say a 3/8 inch lip or 1/8 inch lip around the edge that lights up. And then the face itself actually has either opaque vinyl or some type of metal, like aluminum face that goes over it so that it will block all the lighting from coming out of the face, and it just comes out the edges. And the final finish at night is just it's a really soft glow, and it eliminates any type of potential LED pinpoints at the back that would bounce off the walls. So it looks really clean and very sophisticated.
Thank you.
Do we have any other commissioners with questions for the applicant? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So we'll open the public hearing for this item. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about this application only at 113 South 4th Avenue. And let's see. Brett, do we have any callers?
A couple callers, but nobody indicating a desire to speak. So let's just pause for a moment here.
Absolutely.
No speakers indicated.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brett. Let's move on to commissioners. Any additional questions? Seeing none, I'll now close the public hearing portion of this application. Would any commissioners like to make a motion on the application? Commissioner Beeson with his hand up first. Go ahead. Thank you.
All right, I'm unmuted. Good. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 100 South Main Street, a contributing property in the Main Street Historic District, to install 3 edge-lit wall signs as shown in the amended submission. The work as amended is compatible in exterior design arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for signs and the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for the rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 1, 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for storefronts.
Support.
That was moved by Commissioner Beeson and supported by Commissioner White. Is there any discussion on the motion, commissioners? Commissioner Beeson.
Yeah, I think this certainly helps us clarify what we're looking at in terms of the signage, especially that section and the parts that Tracy had mentioned on the thin lip. That certainly helps us understand this really well. So, with the more subdued lighting, I think it meets the guidelines pretty well, and seems good to me.
Great. I agree. Any other commissioners? I'm not seeing any other comments. I appreciate Jennifer and Tracy coming back here this month and giving us something else to look at. It's well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 Yeah.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Your application has been approved and you will receive a written notice from staff. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning work on your project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll move on to hearings F1. And this is at 1223 Travers Street. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
Thank you. 1223 Travers is in the Broadway Historic District. This is a circa 1840s Jacob Armstrong house, 1.5-story Greek revival in the rare hen and chicks form. The chicks are kind of hidden by the trees here, but you can kind of see the wings going out from the center. May have been moved from another site on Traver, and it was first owned by Jacob Armstrong, who moved to Ann Arbor from New York. Armstrong, his sons and grandsons all worked as carpenters in Ann Arbor. The site's on the west side of Traver, north of Bowen and south of Pear Street, and the applicant is seeking an HDC determination on the status of their detached garage as contributing or non-contributing. Here's a photo from the review committee visit of the garage that we'll be talking about tonight. It's set to the side of the house. I'll show you an aerial photo in a moment. I have lists in the staff report and in a later slide of the features that are original features to the building or presumed original and things that have been replaced. But just to point a few out here, obviously this garage door has been replaced. It's a modern roll-up garage door. There's also a light bulb, a light fixture right here, an exterior light that's been added. This is the side of the building. Both of the sides feature 4/4 wood windows that are in excellent condition especially for garage windows. There's Dutch lap siding that you can see and corner boards that are mostly in good shape. There are a few boards on the other side that, let's see, I guess that's the north side, that have gone a little soft right along the bottom near the ground, but that's not unusual. This is a modern addition. This is some sort of a deck back here used for storage, woodshed or something with a new roof. This is not part of the original building. Here's the window from the inside. Again, in better than usual condition for garage windows. Here's a 1947 aerial photo. You can see the garage is right here alongside the house. You can even see the distinctive hipped roof on the top. Used to have a 2-track driveway. It's in the same location in this photo as the current garage is, and it is presumed to be the same garage because of this, because of the location, the age and type of materials, and the roof shape. On the left is a photo, these are provided by the applicant. On the left is a photo from the 1980s showing what the barn doors used to look like. They used to have double leaf doors. Unfortunately, those were replaced with that garage door that you see on the right. These are more photographs that were provided by the applicants. You can see that the house is set a little ways back from the road, and the garage is off the back corner of that house. This is the side that is alongside the neighbor's lot, alongside the fence. It's hard to get back there. This is a better photo than I was able to take, but you can see that there's just a couple feet between the fence and the wall of the house. And down here are the boards that were going a little soft near the ground. So the State Historic Preservation Office and the Secretary of the Interior define contributing resources and non-contributing resources. I'm going to read these to you because they're going to apply for this and another case tonight. A contributing resource is one that adds to the historic association, historic architectural quality, or archaeological values for which a property is significant because it was present during the period of significance, relates directly to the documented significance, and possesses historic integrity. A non-contributing resource is one that does not add to the historic architectural qualities or historic association of a district because it was not present during the period of significance, does not relate to the documented significance, or due to alteration, additions, and other changes, no longer possesses historic integrity. I should add that the owners of this property are exploring different options for building in the future, for a new accessory building, possibly an accessory dwelling unit, or for their own personal use. That might involve building a new structure or expanding the single-car garage. They're seeking this HDC determination so that they can figure out whether or not the garage needs to stay there and what their parameters are to work around before they get much farther with their plans. Unfortunately, Sanborn maps don't include this portion of Traver Road, but we do have that 1947 aerial, which is a good thing. Moving down here, I went through most of these already, but the visible exterior materials and forms of the garage that are believed to be from the period of significance, which is pre-1945, they include the original footprint and 4 walls, the Dutch lap siding with corner boards, a low slope hipped roof, 4/4 windows, and a wood person door with 2 tall vertical panels. Visible exterior non-historic materials include a modern roll-up garage door, a floodlight fixture, and a roof supported by posts off the back of the structure for covered storage. I should also add to this that roof shingles have presumably been replaced, but that's true of pretty much every historic structure in the city. Also bear in mind that the Secretary of Interior standards include Standard 4, which says that changes to a property that have acquired historic significance in their own right will be retained and preserved. What that means is just because this garage was built, say, in the 30s or 40s and not in the 1840s when the house was built, that doesn't mean that it doesn't have historic significance. If the applicants were restoring the home to a state that was in 1840 and removing all superfluous structures built after that, that would be different, but that's not what's being proposed here. And just as the house has changed over time and acquired different additions on the back, along the way, they picked up a garage here that they built on their property, and the development of car culture is important to the districts as well. That's why the HDC reviews garages in historic districts and treats them as contributing or non-contributing buildings. Let's see. So I believe that's all I have. Yeah, so staff does believe that the building was present during this period of significance and possesses historic integrity, and it adds to the historic architectural quality of the property and the Broadway Historic District. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioners Beeson and Epperson were on the review committee. Will you please give us your report and recommendation?
I'll have Commissioner Epperson go first.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So I pretty much agree with Ms. Thatcher's report. The garage is actually in fairly good condition, considering we do see quite a few garages from period of significance that are dilapidated or not well cared for, or showing the wear over time. The Dutch left wood siding is, it's there. It seems it's in good condition, except for probably closer to the ground, especially in the location that Ms. Thatcher mentioned. There isn't really. I was trying to look at the foundation while we were out there. There's some parge coating, probably on the the yard side of the garage. That's probably the west, or near west. That has some gaps and holes in it, but the inside of the garage actually still appears to also, be completely structurally intact. I didn't see any, indication of any kind of rot. There's been some, I think, sheathing boards up on the roof that have been replaced. You can just tell by potential discoloration, but they're still in good condition. The original openings remain, the windows remain. So I would say, overall, I think that the structure itself is in good shape. I don't have anything else to add to that.
So the staff's report is thorough as usual. It's I think it outlines pretty well what our determining factors are for this in terms of contributing or non-contributing. And then I think it breaks out really well about the materials and how it kind of helps us identify how this building may be contributing or not contributing based on how it's built and what it looks like now. So Commissioner Epperson kind of covered some of the ideas of what the materials are, and I would certainly support all of what she observed is what I observed independently as well, mostly because I got there late. And so I was walking through after she did, so we didn't walk together. But I did see all the same kind of things, especially the shiplap and the way that the framing is done, especially the roof framing. Those are all very typical of that era and prior to that era. So it certainly led me to a very similar conclusion about its contributing status. I think that's it.
Great.
Commissioner Hall.
Thank you both. Let's see, would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record. You have up to 5 minutes to speak. Do you have anything to add to the staff report or review committee report?
Hi,
It looks like we might have Tammy here. Great.
Yes. Hi. My
Hi.
name is Tammy Stevenson. I'm a little new. I'm not a business, just individual, just trying to work the system. So I'm a little unsure of how everything works. So I'll begin. Hi, my name is Tammy Stevenson. This is my husband, Mitch, and my daughters, Emmy, Joji, and Luna. And we thank you for the time you are taking to review our application. We believe that we have laid out significant reasons why our garage should be considered a non-contributing structure. However, I'd like to take my 5 minutes today to go over why a judgment of non-contributing would help us achieve our primary goal. Our primary goal is to add extra living space to our property. We have immediate need with 2 small children and permanent remote job situations. In the near future, we would like to provide livable space for aging parents, and in the distant future, we would like to add age in place in our home. Additionally, we would like to build a beautiful and functional living structure that may one day be considered historical for its design and construction in its own right. We are the current stewards of 1223 Traver, the Jacob Armstrong House. It's a 1851 Greek Revival, 1.5 bedroom, 2 bath, approximately 1,400 square feet. We are in the Broadway Historic District, and we've been here since 2010. We would like to work with the HDC to achieve our primary goal, and there are a few possible options for meeting that goal that I would like to go over. Demolition, addition to garage, or detached ADU behind garage, in addition to the primary house. If our garage is contributing or non-contributing, demolition provides us the greatest artistic freedom to build an ADU that complements our primary residence and contributes to the character of the neighborhood. It preserves vegetation, tree, and plants in the backyard, and it's the most judicious use of space. Ideally, we would like to build something similar but smaller in scale to our neighbor, Mary Underwood, shown here on the left, who was awarded a Historic Preservation Award in 2009. Another option is to add an addition to the garage. However, if the garage is contributing, the HDC guidelines limit the addition to 50% of the original footprint of our garage, which is 216 square feet. So we could only add 100 square feet of livable space. If the garage is non-contributing, however, we would like to be able to add approximately 400 to 600 square feet addition to the garage. Some positives to this option are currently the garage is non-conforming. It is less than 5 feet from the side setback. If the garage is non-contributing, we would ask to keep the garage as is, but move it to make it conforming, add new foundation, and find and add original looking carriage doors. Practical considerations for this option: adding a larger addition to the garage would increase its value and probability of current and future owners preserving the structure. It's also possible to add a detached ADU behind the garage. While this option is possible, aesthetically, a detached ADU behind our garage is really not any different than a larger addition to a non-contributing garage, which we would prefer. We have serious concerns about building behind the main house, as there is a very old walnut tree that provides shade and the main source of cooling in the summer for both 1223 Traver and 1219 Traver. Why not add a primary addition or an addition to our primary residence? We would need determination from HDC on what constitutes original footprint. There have been many additions over the years, and it is unclear how much we could add. There's been additions in, you can see an addition in 1947 and also 1960, and I've included some photos showing what the previous owners, how the previous owners changed the addition in 1960. If the original footprint is found prior to the historic district creation, which is about 1,400 square feet, then it might be possible to add a rear addition of about 700 square feet. If the original footprint is 1947 footprint, which is about 1,100 square feet, including both the loft and the main floor, then it's possible to add only 250 square feet rear addition. Keeping in mind these options are of concern because of the old walnut tree in the back. We have been fortunate to become close with many of our neighbors in the Broadway Historic District, and they have offered their support of our desire to have the garage be declared non-contributing and for us to build an addition to our garage. They include Mary Underwood, who's been here for 30 years in the Solomon Armstrong House, Nancy Alexius, 50 years in the Zabita Beckley House, Sarah Byers, 36 years in the Eli Manley House, Andrew Hosford in the Nellie Darling House, Nate Meyer in the Old Fred and Emma Meyer House, Tom Stolberg, who spoke earlier in the District 16 school, Francine and Taya Boehner Hubbard in the Horace Church House, and Sarah and Tejas Rao in the Sumner Hicks House. This gives you some idea of where they live in relation to us in the Broadway Historic District, circled in red. Thank you. We would like to summarize by saying that we would like to work with the HDC to achieve our primary goal. We would very much like to find a compromise that contributes to the character of the Broadway Historic District while also allowing us to stay at 1223 Traver and build additional living space. Given all the constraints we have presented, we believe that a fair compromise would be to judge the garage non-contributing. We recognize that a judgment of contributing does not preclude us, however, from requesting approval for other options that help us achieve our primary goal. Oops, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy, for a very thorough report there. Commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicant?
I'll go on.
One raising. Okay, John. Yeah, Commissioner Beeson. Thank you.
Yeah, so Tammy, you laid out we kind of mentioned this on site too, which I could have brought up when we kind of talked about the site visit, but you had also mentioned the option of moving the house or moving the garage. Yeah, and moving the garage. And so that has nothing to do with our decision right now, because right now we have to decide whether or not it's contributing or not contributing. That's really the basis of it all. And whether or not it's contributing or non-contributing, the moving option was one that we kind of talked about on site a little bit, and we kind of scratched our head saying, most people don't ever go that route, but it's certainly a route that I personally feel strongly about, just because these, even if it's contributing or non-contributing, it's an old, nice structure that is worth keeping. So it's an area that I wanted you to kind of think about more, and if you have more thoughts on it, to share it now.
So we have a neighbor, Sarah Byers, who lives in the Eli Manley house. She had a old garage carriage that had become dilapidated, I think in the probably 90s. And in a drunken reveille one night, that it was torn down. But it was falling down. It was covered in a tarp. She has some old photos of it, actually. We have approached her of potential interest in our garage, since she no longer has a garage, and she used to have a very similar structure to ours. And and it's kitty corner to our house, essentially. So we thought that was also a possible option, since it would preserve the garage in a similar Greek style revival house in a location where there used to be a similar structure.
Yep. So you're looking at not necessarily moving it somewhere else on your site, but it would be potentially somewhere off-site.
Yeah. In the historic district. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other commissioners with questions for the applicant? I'm not seeing any. So that means that we will now open the public hearing for this item. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about the application at 1223 Traver. Brett, do we have any callers indicating the *9 on their phone?
We do. Caller with the phone number ending with 053.
Great.
Caller with the phone number ending with 053. You can unmute your phone and address the Historic District Commission for up to 3 minutes. You may need to press *6 to unmute your phone.
Hello. Yes, hi. Thank you. My name is Mary Underwood, and I live in the Amos Corey house right next door to Tammy and Mitch at 1219 Traver. I love this house and was thrilled to receive a preservation award several years ago from the Historic Commission. Tammy mentioned that. The insides are as precious as the outside to me, and there's no way to measure the pleasure I take in living in this old structure, both for its history and for its charm. I'm fortunate in that I was able to build another wonderful structure in my backyard, which serves as my weaving studio and may someday allow me to age in place here. My garage still stands pretty much unchanged behind the studio in the backyard. So we do have an intact contributing structure next door to 1223 for perspective. I also have the foundation of the old outhouse, and I'm happy that the actual outhouse is gone. And I'm really glad Tammy mentioned the walnut tree. I put that on par with the bur oak in Worcester Park. It is a giant and a beauty, a bifurcated walnut that really needs to be cared for and preserved. So that figures in, I think, as much as a man-made structure. The city's historic buildings are, facing all kinds of threats in the name of density right now. We need all the advocates we can muster for appropriate density. And we need you to hold strong in maintaining the structures that remain. That said, there are times when this creates a real hardship for those who would desire living in these old homes. I truly hope the commission finds the garage at 1223 a non-contributing structure, or considers what Tammy just brought up about moving it across the street to Sarah's house. It's a really creative solution. They've gone above and beyond to try and figure out a way to keep this the historic tenor of this neighborhood intact. How many young people are willing to deal with the inconvenience and all the work and expense that goes into maintaining an old home? Can the committee help accommodate a young population that gives vitality to a home and a neighborhood, and ultimately will be proponents of preserving our historic structures? I hope so. Wall Street, razed. Maiden Lane, gone. What this committee does is extremely important. Please be the group that advocates for those who would like to inhabit these old structures while still living in today's world. Please continue to help this happen. 1223 is beautifully maintained, and as a neighbor, I'd like to support my next door neighbors, Tammy and Mitch, and their 2 daughters. Continue to find ways to remain here and still meet their needs for a comfortable lifestyle as a family. Thanks, and thanks for the work you do for the city.
Thank you for those comments. Brett, do we have any other callers on the line here? It looks like we do.
We do. Caller with the phone number ending with 534. Caller with the phone number ending with 534. You can unmute your phone and address the Historic District Commission.
Hello, this is Tom Stolberg again. I don't really have any more data to give you. You have plenty. The staff report is excellent. The commissioners who are on site gave good reports. The comments that I heard are definitely descriptive of the situation. I do want to mention that in addition to living at 1202 Traver Street, I'm an owner or part owner also in 1206 Traver, which is in the Broadway Historic District. And also on Pontiac Trail, we've got a couple rental properties at 1214 Pontiac and 1220 Pontiac, which are right in the backyards of Mary Underwood, who just called, and then next door to that. So one over from Tammy and Mitch. There's a little conundrum here in how do we have small houses in historic districts that allow growing families and allow aging in place and allow older family members to potentially move in, and it's a challenge. So I really respect this particular body and how well you operate, and I know some of you from past experience working on that body with you. So I certainly do not want to tell you how to do your job. I have a lot of faith in your ability. I just want to say that whatever you decide, that I and my partners in the surrounding houses will have no objections however this goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Brett, do we have any other callers available?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. So then we will go to commissioners. Do we have any additional questions now that we've heard a few comments from the public? I'm not seeing any commissioners with further questions. So I'll now close the public hearing portion of this application. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion on the application? Well, I'll go with Commissioner Rockland, Commissioner Beeson.
Okay. So here's the motion. I move that the single car garage at 1223 Traver Street in the Broadway Historic District be classified as a contributing structure because of its presence during the period of significance for the Broadway Historic District and the historic integrity of its design, massing, characteristics, and materials.
Support.
Okay, so that was moved by Commissioner Rockland and supported by Commissioner White. Is there discussion on the motion? Commissioner Rockland, please.
Sure. Well, I think there's a lot of factors to consider here with this project. And I guess specifically, we're just talking about the garage here and whether or not it's contributing or non-contributing. But we've heard a lot more than that during the hearing today, and it's all very interesting. And I guess I just want to say I really appreciate the presentation that you made, Tammy, and all the work that you put into it, and just the fact that you've have such a great group of neighbors and who are supporting you here, and it all really makes a difference in this meeting for sure. And it's just really like Mary was saying on the phone. It's just nice to see someone who's really owns their home, is very proud of it, and wants to do the best they can with what they have. And I think a lot of people who live in historic homes feel that way too. They want to do the best with it. And a lot of times we see things where people though are not necessarily doing that. So again, just want to reiterate, we appreciate what you're doing. I think what I've heard in terms of contributing and non-contributing, just reading the ruling that we have to make is the wording of it comes down to, sorry, I'm trying to bring it up here. So for a contributing resource, it was present during the period of significance. It relates directly to documented significance, and it possesses the historic integrity. So I think that it's, it's really those three items. And in this case, I feel like what I'm seeing with the garage is that it does in fact possess those three items. So that's just what the conclusion that I've made so far on the issue of whether or not the garage is contributing.
Thank you, Commissioner Rockland. Well said. Do we have any other commissioners who would like to add to the discussion? Commissioner Beeson.
And to give other commissioners a chance here. For the most part, I think Commissioner Rockland fell in kind of the same situation that I am. That we have these definitions that we have to follow. We've got to follow the guidelines. Does this meet the definition or not? And to me, it clearly meets the definition. And so to me, in my mind, as a result of meeting the definition, it is a contributing structure. So I would probably move to approve the motion, but of course that doesn't tell us what the next story might be. And the next story might be just like the question that came up that Tom had brought up in his early comments. We're going to see more and more of these as applications begin to come across in historic districts to increase the space on sites. And I think this is a good time for us to be really thinking about how we move forward on this discussion, because we know as we've judged additions and new accessory structures on existing historic landscapes and properties, that we'll still judge them the same way. It's the size, scale, and relationship. It's the same kind of wording that we use a lot with our guidelines. So I think even as the guidelines have always provided us a good answer in terms of long-term direction as the city might be heading with density, it provides us the direction here that we need for the definition that we need to follow.
Any other commissioners with thoughts to add to the discussion? Commissioner Quijano? Yep.
Again, just want to reiterate what Commissioner Rockland stated earlier. I really appreciate the thorough research and engagement that Tammy and the homeowners in the neighborhood have really, gotten together as a community. That's what we love. But also, we've seen, I feel like maybe not a handful, but a number of applications in recent history that, reviewing contributing, non-contributing status. And we may see more of these. And at this point, really, it's these definitions that we have to base our rulings on. And, in one sense, you're fortunate that you have such a great structure remaining. The integrity is there, and I also have been rereading this definition, and I keep coming back to contributing. But that doesn't mean we can't come up with a creative solution for moving forward with you. So hopefully it all works out there.
Okay, any other commissioners? Okay, I think I'll just add that all three of the commissioners that have spoken so far, I agree completely with. I wish we saw more of the effort that you put into your presentation on other applications, because it's impressive, and there's a lot to say there. And unfortunately, we're just voting on the one part of it, and it seems like you have a lot of ideas, and I'm interested to see where those go. Anyway, so do any other commissioners with comments?
Am I
And we'll
allowed to
move-
have a question?
Sure, yes.
I guess I'm a little confused as to how to like brainstorm with the committee or the commission on different proposals without like paying $1,000 application fee every time.
It's a great question, and it's totally valid. And Jill, please step in if I'm going to answer this incorrectly. But what I would say is a workshop session after a meeting. Is that fair to say? Can I offer that?
Evan, you're the chair. You get
Yeah.
to offer whatever you like.
Well, I hope the commissioners would support me. The effort that we saw in the presentation, I have no doubt that Tammy would come forth with some interesting and great ideas for a workshop session. So, John, are you saying something, or are you proposing?
I'm throwing this out there for Tammy. Tammy, work sessions are common, and we encourage the public to do them as much as possible. They help a lot in engaging us. So it is certainly a way to kind of bring forth ideas and then bounce them off us to kind of say, this is how we would have to make judgment on it. And at the same time, we're also a bunch of architects who can't help themselves. So we love to give you ideas. So we'll have to be able to make sure we differentiate between our roles as HDC people, making sure that we're giving you guidance based on what we have to follow for our guidelines. And at the same time, our architectural juices go wild.
Okay. Because I asked for a working session, but was told that wasn't possible. So we were like, we weren't sure how to go forward.
Yeah, John, you're overstating a little bit working sessions.
All right, fine.
We usually use them for complex downtown projects.
I like seeing them a lot. I like seeing them early and often because then they take the hairiness out of applications.
Yes, you're more than welcome to have a working session for this application. Well, we do have some. Tammy has some research to do. I have some research to do. We got to figure out when additions were put on. We've got to figure out zoning restrictions. I personally think that the best solution is going to be to propose a new standalone building in the back corner of the yard where you're not impacting trees. That would mean moving another small outbuilding. But yes, there are certainly things, as long as everyone realizes that the commission's role is not to tell an applicant what to do. It's rather to tell them if their ideas are going to hold water or not, and if we think that they can meet the standards and guidelines. So I don't want you guys to start turning working sessions into sort of a design session, but just to keep that in the back of your head. Sorry if I'm the wet towel.
That's fair. Commissioner Rockland, you were going to add something? Maybe?
I was just going to add that, the working sessions should be about meeting the standards. So I just wanted to filter everything that you're thinking through the historic district standards. So it's not like every idea is on the table, unfortunately. It's how do you get how do you solve the project while still maintaining within the standards? And Jill knows the standards better than everyone. And she is a great first contact. And it sounds like you've been doing that, but keep working through Jill as well, to make sure that you're not spinning wheels and wasting time with ideas that that don't meet the standards. So I hope that didn't confuse more than enlighten, but just wanted to point you to the standards, and they're available to read through and all that. So, yeah.
Tammy, do you have any other questions?
I don't think so. Can I get my refund? Just kidding.
I have no idea about that. I'm not.
It's $100. It's okay.
Hey, no, that's. Commissioner Quijano has something to add here.
Well, I'm just a little concerned, just hearing that, that Tammy was told that she couldn't get a working session, but whether that was in regard to specifically a contributing versus non-contributing discussion, as opposed to proposing a design project.
It was kind of something like, we were talking with Tom because we have all these constraints with our house and property and zoning, because originally a year ago, I brought it to the attention of the Planning Commission that R2A zones were accidentally left out of the UDC. So thankfully this past year, they put in the original sort of language and allowed R2As to have ADUs. So that was a whole problem. But like Tom was like, we'll request a working session so that you can brainstorm with all these different rules and constraints, what's even possible with HDC guidelines and maybe even Planning Commission guidelines. Because there's so many different, like, again, constraints to our property and to the house and unknowns. And it would have been nice to be able to work through that out loud without paying $1,000 or, paying every application to try to get in front of the ADC.
So Tammy, just that's me. That's my job, is to work through some of those things with you. I can help you with the zoning. Jad Barrett's been helping you with the zoning. We can figure out where things can go. We really had to find out, though, if that garage was contributing or not, because all of your plans hinged on whether or not the garage stayed or went. So we had to take this first step. And now that we know the garage is going to stay there, we can move on to what's next. Where can you put things? Where are your setbacks? Where are your big trees? And that's going to narrow down the scope of your project considerably, I think, once you get all those things on paper and drawn out.
I guess
Hopefully, we're able to have a more clear path now of what rules apply and how the different layers play into it, with some guidance, more guidance from the planners and Jill.
Okay, so hopefully that will work for you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Yes, and but we do need to have a vote unless there's anything further from the commissioners on discussion here. I'm not seeing any, so we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 Yeah.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Your application has been, do I say approved? Sorry, it's just weird.
Double negative.
Sorry, one second. You will receive, your application has been approved. You will receive a written notice from staff. Please note that you must apply for required permits from the city before beginning work on the project. Sorry. Thank you, Tammy, for your time and your effort.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to F2 hearings. This is at 540 South 7th Street. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
540 South 7th Street is in the Old West Side Historic District. It's a two-story gable fronter that features Queen Anne trim, such as fish scale shingles in the front porch gables, and a full-width front porch with turn posts and decorative brackets. It was first occupied in 1902 by Samuel Stadel, a carpenter, and his wife Sophia, according to city directories. In 2001, the HDC issued a certificate of appropriateness for a single-story addition on the north rear side of the house, which is what we're going to talk about today, an open rear porch, and a carport. In 2010, the HDC issued a certificate of appropriateness to add a 10-foot wide gable dormer on the rear elevation of the addition. That work was never done, and the approval expired in 2013. The site's located on the southwest corner of South 7th Street and Lutz Avenue, and the applicant is seeking HDC approval to do the following work on the 1.5-story addition, that's this wing back here. To lift the roof approximately 2 feet and add a dormer on the rear, to modify or move several windows, install a slider on the rear elevation, and replace the lap siding and corner boards. In addition, the application includes adding an egress window to the second floor rear elevation on the original 2-story part of the house. So this is the wing that we're talking about that they would like to raise the roof on 2 feet. It's not tall enough to get a lot of habitable space inside. You can imagine standing up in the middle is fine, but those walls slope down pretty quickly. And right now, this little bump out on the side is an original feature of the house. And this roof comes down and ties in just below the eave of that bump. You'll see in drawings in a few minutes that when it's raised 2 feet, it'll tie in above the corner, which I think is a positive. Here's the addition that was put on over here in 2001. This is an original rear wing of the house. This little extra gable here, no idea. I think it doesn't match. When we were standing out there, we realized that the trim doesn't match, the boards don't match. So we think it was probably added on as part of this wing. I'm not sure what its function is, but just note that it's not an original part of the house. And this full width porch across the back was added at that time also. Window is proposed to go right about here on the back wall. That's because in order to gain access to the wing from the second floor, they need to move a bathroom out of the way move a bathroom that's right here out of the way and relocate a bedroom into that corner. And it doesn't currently have an egress window. This is the other side. This is the Lutz Street side of the house, and there's a carport in the back. And this is all original. The house has most of its original windows. Here's the wing with the roof that would be raised 2 feet. These are before and afters. The existing is on the left, the proposed is on the right. You can see that the roof ridge going up 2 feet still keeps it well away from the chimney, from the existing roof ridge. And this is what I was talking about. Right now, this eave ties in below the bump out, and now it would be above the bump out. It doesn't make a huge difference, but I think it's kind of nice to get it away and to keep this a little more freestanding than to have this running into it. It's a little bit more awkward from the side. This is a new double hung window, but these are modern windows anyway, so I'm not too concerned about a replacement there. Original windows on the rest of the house stay in place. Here we have the south side of the wing. These windows would be replaced. This one would get replaced with 2 double hung windows in a pair. I'm sorry, this one says reuse existing. So that one would stay. You can see how the ridge goes up a little bit. And here's the dormer off the back of the wing. Now we're looking on the back side, the west elevation. These 3 windows would be moved up onto the new dormer, and 2 pairs of sliders would be installed in their place on this non-original part of the house. These windows stay in place, this original window stays, and here you can see the additional window that's required for bedroom egress. I don't think I put the floor plans in here, but they're in your packet if you want to see just how that floor plan changes and why that window is required now. So this staff utilizes a non-character defining interior space to add floor area in a very minimally intrusive way. It doesn't change the footprint at all. In fact, it changes the usable area of the interior of the house. Really, the only work that affects the historic features of the house are this window and then the slight change of the roof height, which will now match this rear gable you can see here. I think that this is an appropriate location. It's always tough on a corner lot to figure out a place to add a new window. I did talk to the architect about adding an egress skylight, but I believe that it was going to be up too high to meet code for that. So from the Secretary of the Interior standards that best apply, number 9 I've already read to you, and number 10 I've already read to you. From the guidelines for additions, it's recommended to locate the attached exterior addition at the rear or on an inconspicuous side of a historic building and limit its size and scale in relationship to the historic building, to place functions and services required for the new use in non-character defining interior spaces rather than constructing a new addition. Guidelines for windows recommend designing and installing additional windows on rear or other non-character defining elevations if required by the new use. Such design should be compatible, but not duplicate the fenestration pattern and detailing of a character-defining elevation. You see on the drawings that the trim details and the window sizes are slightly varied from those of the originals. Not recommended is installing new windows, including frame, sash, and mutton configurations that are incompatible with the building's historic appearance or obscure, damage, or destroy character-defining features. Staff does believe that this work is appropriate. It's a creative way to gain some more usable floor area in a wing that's just got too short of a ceiling right now. And I do appreciate that it doesn't expand the footprint at all. And I think visually this impact will be minimal to raise the roof 2 feet. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioners Beeson and Epperson were on the review committee. Will you please give us your report and recommendations?
Sure. You want me to go?
I'll go first.
Okay.
So I think as usual, the staff's report was very thorough. I think it was very clear. They stated that the modifications are all to a non-original portion of the house, a previous addition. I think that particular point about raising the roof enough and to actually have the eave clear the existing bump out, I think is actually a essentially better solution than what is occurring presently, where it kind of dies and goes underneath that existing bump out. I think it'll help define that a little bit more as the original structure. I think I don't have any issues with any of the window changes and openings. They're for the most part the same, and just relocating, with the exception of what's happening up above and on the dormer. I had a little bit, I think, of pause initially looking at, the increase in height overall, because we've talked about this in other issues, especially with something set back. You're raising the height of the roof. Does the scale become out of proportion? But I think it's still distinct enough from the main roof of the house, that main gable. And I do think the window location on the original structure is a little bit odd. I think there were some concerns that we had looking at that back portion, that there would actually be enough room to fit the window. Where it is, it appears that it would be interrupted by the gutter and the eave of the original structure roof. So there, I think, would be some more clarification that we could use on that window. But I think overall, I support the application.
Yeah, the report, of course, is nice and thorough and perfect to kind of help us understand what the full issues are and what the guidelines are as well in going through this application. The areas that might need some highlight is, Jill, if you can bring up the rear elevation. There's an existing kind of extra dormer segment that's back on the roof. It's right up there. And we kind of stared at it for a little bit. I think on site, we kind of determined that this was non-original to it. And it must have been added because the wood looked a lot newer. It didn't have the same kind of scaling or pitting involved in older wood. So you'll see that little area on the back would be obscured a little bit more, but at the same time, it's not really a feature that seems original to the house. So it being obscured a little bit more doesn't seem as much of an issue. So I think Commissioner Epperson did bring up the concern that I had too with the window off to the left, with that little egress window. And we both kind of said, well, I guess between that and a skylight, what's better, what's worse, right? So I think that might be a good kind of discussion point.
Thank you, Commissioners Epperson and Beeson. Let's see, would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record. Do you have anything to add to the staff report or review committee?
Yeah, my name is Connie Rizzolo Brown, and I'm the architect on the project. Address 2110 Collingwood, Suite 106 in Ann Arbor, Michigan. You're right, that window just barely fits. It is tight. We measured it about 3 times, and getting the smallest egress window I could find was what I was trying to do there. But it is tight in there, and it does have to be a casement in order to be able to make it work as well. I think the little extra gable on the back is to help you get through that area that you walk through to get where the new bedroom's going to be, to give you head height so you don't have to crawl through it. It adds to that. Other than that, I don't have any other comments. I know that the clients had wanted me to ask you an additional question once we've discussed this about something that they want to do and how we would proceed with it. But I think Jill described the project pretty clearly.
Great, thank you, Connie. Commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicant? I'm not seeing any. So I'll open up the public hearing for this item. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about this application at 540 South 7th Street. Brett, do we have anyone dialing *9?
We do not. No callers currently on the line.
Great, thank you, Brett. Commissioners, I'm assuming we are good with no more questions. I'll now close the public hearing portion of this application. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion? Commissioner Fortner.
Unmute my script here. Sorry, I thought it was on it. Okay. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 540 South 7th Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to do the following work on the addition. Lift the roof approximately 2 feet and add a dormer to its rear elevation. Modify or move several windows, install a double slider on the rear elevation, and replace the lap siding and corner boards. In addition, add an egress window to the 2nd floor rear west elevation. The proposed work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the house and the surrounding area, and meets the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 9 and 10 and the guidelines for new additions and windows.
Support.
So that was moved by Commissioner Fortner and supported by Commissioner White. Is there any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Rockland.
I actually had a question for Connie that I just realized. I'm looking at the proposed east elevation, so the front of the house. There's some text at the bottom there's a little drawing of some shingles, some detailed shingles, some scallop shingles or something like that. And it says, it looks like existing decorative shingle fiber cement. And I just was curious what that is referring to.
I think that, okay, I'll tell you what I did. And Jill said that I was appropriating history. My first, so I didn't have to replace all the siding because I'm going to have to replace all the siding on that addition. Just above the window there, I wanted to put a fish scale that was different than the historical because I thought if I banded it, I can save all that siding. And I thought it highlighted the house. However, I was told it didn't seem like the right kind of idea. So I think you have a stray note that's left on the package then, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification, Connie. Do we have any other commissioners with discussion items? Commissioner Quijano.
I'm just kind of curious if the other commissioners have thoughts on this. So we've talked about and heard from Anna and John about the raising of the 2 feet, and from the street view, the primary elevation on the east side. Even though yes, it's taller, it's not really changing the role of the main historic house and the addition off to the side. But in looking at, and I think it's page or sheet 30, if you're looking in the packet, in the PDF, the new ridge height is, and there isn't a dimension on it, but it's quite close to the ridge of the historic lower portion of the house. And I know this is a rear elevation, so not, I would view that as a secondary elevation. But I'm just kind of curious how others feel about that, because oftentimes we'll have a discussion, the distinction and, not having it misread as, oh, that was all built at one time, perhaps, or it just struck me and I'm curious. Yeah, Steve.
Commissioner Rockland.
My take on that is that if it was rotated 90 degrees and sort of, extruded from the back, then that's when we certainly want the roof to be lower to then differentiate the two. But I think when it's set at a 90, usually what we say is, I think that it's differentiated because you can really read the two different massings as separate. And then once you see the massings as separate, then you can look at the details to determine the history or not. So I think to directly respond to your comment, that would be my thoughts.
And
yeah, it was just something that caught my eye and wanted to,
yeah, and I'd add that it certainly would make me think twice about it if this were not part of the original house. But the drawings indicate that that portion of the house was not part of the original contributing structure. And so I think it would be helpful to get clarification from Jill as to whether or not that wing is included in the contributing structure portion.
Are you talking? You're talking.
Is she talking? Is she muted?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I just gave you the whole story muted. The historic structure is the 2.5 story, that you see here, and this 1 3/4 story addition on the back.
Oh, there it is.
This wing is all new.
Yeah, so
and as Connie explained, this little gable is new.
Yeah, so the floor plan on page 14 of the PDF, I think that shows it too pretty well. I don't know if you have that on your slideshow. Oh, no, I
I
don't
do
think you
not.
did because you didn't
I
have
do
the
not.
floor plans. That's right. Yeah. So so that's another reason, Commissioner Keanu, why I kind of differentiated as well. And the fact that it's the 90 degrees kind of differentiating away from the rest of the building. And I think as Commissioner Rockland mentioned, you know, if this was 90 degrees and in line with it, it would be definitely competing with the height, and that we'd want to see it kind of roof separated, different height, all that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, I think that point of the direction of that volume, that mass, that if it were turned 90, it would be more in kind of the rhythm of the original structure, of the composition, and more confusing. But yeah, no. Thank you for entertaining this discussion.
And the part of the conjecture that Jill had mentioned too to the applicant also made me kind of think about that too, in terms of like, if this were the original structure and we were raising the height on it, how would we differentiate and know that it was raised up eventually? You know, that made me think about that too. We're not dealing with that here, but it just made me think about it.
Interesting discussion. Is there any other commissioners with discussion items? Commissioner Rockland.
Well, I'm just want to make sure that we talk about the egress window, because that seems like it's not fitting in a nice, it's not playing nice with the historic structure. Just because you generally wouldn't see a window, you know, so close to a corner. I suppose there's probably exceptions, but just in general and in the rest of the house, the historic part of the house.
And I guess Commissioner Rockland, it being a casement would certainly differentiate itself.
Yes, just the positioning itself and the casement. But I guess my question is I think it differentiates. My question is it compatible? You know, that's the question. I think I guess to couch my question and statement, I think the addition is very compatible, and I think it shows a lot of creativity and also restraint in the way, you know, the roof is raised just so, and then there's the, you know, the dormers creating the space, and it really is threading the needle. And then then there's the egress window that just has to be there, I guess. But is there, I'm just curious, I guess, what are we all thinking, and what can we do about it? And is it?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yeah. My original thought was to put it on the street side, on Lutz, where it will show. And it would be different. And the window that's on the street side matches the windows on the other side. So those are all the same windows up on the second story. And I had wondered if I could increase the size of the window, making it different from the one below it and making it different from the one next to it. But it does mean removing that historic window. Because I've got two walls that I can work with there. Skylight, the top of the plate there is 6'7", 6'6". So a skylight is, I mean, you need a ladder to get to the skylight at that point.
Well, I always go to the guidelines, right? So I'm going to read from the windows recommended and windows not recommended. And I think that might help us kind of hone in on what might help us figure out what's best for this. But Connie, I do appreciate the kind of alternative thoughts you were going through on the Lutz side. So with all that in mind, I'm just going to read this out. Okay, so windows recommended. Designing and installing additional windows on rear or other non-character defining elevations if required by the new use. New window openings may also be cut into the exposed party walls. Such design shall be compatible with the overall design of the building, but not duplicate the fenestration pattern and detailing of the character defining elevation. Not recommended. Installing new windows, including frame, sash, and mutton configurations that are incompatible with the building's historic appearance or obscure, damage, or destroy character-defining features. So it really comes down to designing and installing, designing and installing additional windows on rear or other non-character defining elevations if required by the new use. I could see that that's meeting the recommendation. It's on the rear and it doesn't destroy or damage character defining features. It does change its balance in the way that the rear is read, but of all the elevations, I feel like that one might be better than on the Lutz side, because the Lutz side is this kind of street facing side. We run into this all the time with the street facing side because it takes on this bigger importance. So those are my thoughts, that I feel like the lesser of all the evils right there in the back. Those are my thoughts.
And could you argue that it's reversible?
Yeah, I guess you could, right?
I mean, you would lose, I assume that siding is historic still. You would lose a little bit of historic siding, but that could be made to look like it was never there if you had to.
Yeah.
Certainly more reversible than removing a historic window.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I would definitely urge.
Yeah. Or punching a hole in the roof, right?
Right. Any other discussion items here? Not seeing any. We're ready for a vote here? Okay. Let's see. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 Yes. All those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Your application has been approved. You will receive a written notice from staff. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning work on your project. Thank you, Connie.
Yeah, can I ask one question before we go? Would you like us to save the siding that's removed in that area for the window?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, you talked about it being reversible. Does that help?
Yeah, I think, yeah, if it's possible, I would. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that would be the opinion of all the commissioners.
Okay.
Take it, please.
Okay. And I want to ask you one more question, because we hadn't figured out how to do it, but they would like to eventually put a fireplace. And we would have to come back to you for any flue placement or anything. Is that correct? Any new penetration through the roof into the historic structure would have to come back to the historic district?
I'm going to let Ms. Thatcher answer.
Okay.
Only if it's on a very visible location, Connie. If you could, would the fireplace be on the wing, on the addition?
Now, unfortunately, that's bedrooms and stuff like that over there. So no, it would want to be where it needs to be so it works is more in the original house itself. Yeah.
Okay. Well, figure out what kind of vent you would need, what kind of chimney for it, and where you would put it, and then let me know. There are some things that I can staff approve, but if it's coming out on the street side, it may need to go to the commission, but just let me know what you work out.
Okay, thank you. And if you can keep me on, I'm not presenting the next project, but you might as well keep me on in case there's a question.
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks.
Great, thanks, Connie.
Thank you very much.
We'll now move on to item F3, 121 and 123 East Liberty Street.
Well, I don't have a staff report on that.
Okay.
Just want you to know. So I will not be doing a second on F3 because I don't have a staff report that shows I don't know why, but I don't have that. Go ahead.
I'm not sure, but can you see the screen, Bob?
Yeah, I can see the screen. I have everything else, but I don't have that staff report. When I clicked on it, I don't have that one.
Interesting.
But go ahead.
All right. Yeah, we'll move ahead here. And Ms. Thatcher, would you please give the staff?
So these buildings are in the Main Street Historic District at 121 and 123 East Liberty. There's also an address at 220 South 4th Avenue around the corner, but it's just a secondary entrance to the corner store at this point in its life. The 1901 City Directory lists Gilbert Snow as the occupant of 121, and in 1912 lists the store as a machine shop. By 1915, the store was the location of a clothing store run by Fred W. Gross in 123. And originally, the building was 2 stories at 121 and 3 stories at 123, as you can see here. A fire in 1952 damaged both, and the upper floors were removed, creating a 1-story building, and the building was refaced with enameled steel panel siding, like this. In 2013, an application was approved to build 3 new floors above the existing 1-story building. That was extended in 2016, but has since expired. And in 2020, staff approved the removal of the enameled steel panels on the exterior. Sites at the northwest corner of East Liberty Street and South 4th Avenue, and the applicant is seeking HDC approval to replace 3 storefronts, one at each of the 3 addresses, and several display storefront windows. So here's the first storefront at 121. You can see that when the owner got the enameled steel panels off, this is all just CMU. All the bricks have been removed from there, at least on this front elevation. These storefronts are obviously modern. They're from the 70s. Here's the corner store, 123 East Liberty. Again, I would expect there's just more CMU behind these enameled panels that are left. These were left up because of the signage for the stores. It's just there temporarily. And this is the 4th Avenue side of the store. Some cool advertising. It's old, it's not historic, especially since the building is not considered historic anymore because it has lost its integrity by having those floors removed. This is one of the storefronts. This is just a display window. And then farther to the north, we have the secondary entrance off of 4th Avenue, which also has some display windows. You can still see ghosting and brick patterns of old arches that used to be along the sides here. And those show up in the historic photographs, but again, they're just remnants at this point. It's kind of interesting how many different kinds of brick this wall has on it also. I'm not sure how that happened, but they've got a variety. So this is the new storefronts superimposed on the old, which are lighter. This one is nearly the same. The door is in pretty much the same location. There's a piece of plywood here now that makes this niche back here. That's proposed to just be squared off with the corner. And you'll see that in a second on the drawings. And then on the other storefront, they're moving the door from the center of the 2 spaces and centering it on the storefront. This is a more historic look. It is, I think, more compatible with a lot of the downtown stores. Existing, this still shows the panels before they were removed, but you get the idea of what the storefronts were like. And the proposed. So on 121, this CMU area gets new bricks up above, gets some decorative brickwork in stacks, and this sign area is not shown on the drawings that were in your packet. The architect drew them up and added them so that we wouldn't have to go back with new sign applications later on for tenants in these stores. But these are the placeholder sign areas so that future signage can be approved by staff as long as it fits in there and is appropriately lit or unlit. Aluminum storefronts. I'm not sure what this kick plate is here. It may be just matching MDO or Trex, like on the one to the right. This is a little more, I don't want to say historic, but a more traditional looking storefront. It's got some raised panels, it's got some trim. It matches, it wraps around the corner, continues onto 4th Avenue. Optional restore mural in this area. Great if that happens, if it gets painted over. Again, this is not a contributing building, so it's a cool thing, but whether it stays or goes, I don't really think is part of the purview of the HDC. The brick would all be repainted after it's repaired and repointed. And these storefront windows are similar and compatible to the ones on the front of the store on 123. So the whole building is going to look a lot cleaner. It's going to look more up to date. I don't want to use the word modern because this is a traditional use of modern materials, let's say, that I do think is compatible. Profile was added in. You guys just got this separately in an email after the packet went out, but it is showing, the trim. It looks kind of like there are a lot of panels going on in these drawings, and I wasn't sure what was happening with all of these. So the architect supplied these to just clarify it a little bit. From the Secretary of Interior standards, I've already read number 9 to you. From the guidelines for storefronts, it's recommended to design and construct a new storefront when the historic storefront is completely missing. It may be an accurate restoration. Of course, they wouldn't be able to restore this because several floors of the building are missing. Or it may be a new design that's compatible with the size, scale, and materials of the historic building. New design should be flush with the facade and be kept as simple as possible. Not recommended is introducing a new design that's incompatible in size, scale, material, and color. From the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines, it's not appropriate to install a new storefront that's incompatible in size and material with the historic building and district. For signs, it's appropriate to install signage that is subordinate to the overall building composition. I do think that those sign bands are in appropriate locations above the front doors. And overall, I do believe that this application meets the Secretary of Interior standards and guidelines and the Ann Arbor Historic District Guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioners Beeson and Epperson were on the review committee. Will you please give us your report and recommendation?
Yeah. So I would say that the majority of our time that we spent was, I think, really looking at, obviously, the existing conditions of the building are fairly clear. It's in the existing storefronts are not in good condition at all. The existing, CMU itself that's exposed is not original. It doesn't look very good. There's CMU base at all the storefront locations. There's existing steel lintels that define the openings that are exposed. So I think there were a lot of things that we're looking at just to kind of give an overall assessment of the building and how this work is going to be implemented within the existing framework. And I think it's pretty clear in the application and the report that this is really for the most part a replacement of existing materials that would be in what's proposed is in much better design and shape than what's there, and is really takes into consideration posing two different storefront systems or different storefront applications for each address that help really define and lock that those features of each in place, and still do a good job, I think, of being compatible with other historic design in the area and in the downtown district. I think the move of the one door toward the center is completely appropriate in maintaining the entrance on the I don't know, Jill, if you can pull up the plans, but on the entrance off the corner, I would say, of the building is totally appropriate. I think that existing brick, this is fine. This picture on this ATI building, that I think it appeared to be would all be remaining, with the exception of what's happening up above the storefront cornice. It appeared that that cornice would be carried all across. So I think there were some questions we had about depth of new material that have somewhat been addressed in the new section drawings, at least for the wood paneling. But I think overall this application fits within the guidelines.
Yeah, similar report. The staff report certainly helps us provide a lot of guidance, and certainly helpful to get that additional section. And I can assure you that the existing storefront is single pane, gaps, holes, glass falling out of out of the framing. It definitely needs to be replaced, and this is showing some good stewardship of this building to kind of rebuild these storefronts in a way that kind of showcases kind of the downtown design guidelines. Yeah, that's it. Go ahead, Evan.
Great. Thank you, Commissioners Epperson and Beeson. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record? Do you have anything to add to the staff report or review committee?
Thank you, Jill. Thank you very much, commissioners. Appreciate it. Really nothing else to add. I think both Ann and John pretty much described the building. I think the photographs that you folks have seen pretty much tell the story the way it is. The design Connie has and I have worked on, although I'm not going to let her talk, so don't unmute her. So pretty self-explanatory. I think this is similar to a lot of the stuff that we've done in of the couple dozen buildings I have downtown. Very similar type stuff. Connie's been our architect for a number of years. Most recently, what we did at 116 South Main. Very complimentary to the historic district, recognizing that the building has unfortunately, all those wonderful features have been destroyed, trying to give it some good look, for the lack of better words. And we recognize we're really kind of handicapped from trying to perfectly restore it, which unfortunately we're not going to be able to do that, but give it a nice compliment to the HDC and all the surrounding buildings. Can I add a personal note at this time, if you don't mind?
Sure.
This is to Bob White. Bob, congratulations on Kathy's promotion. General, correct?
Correct.
That is
very much.
Kudos to you, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for allowing me to have that comment.
Of course, thanks, Ed. Commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Rockland.
Thank you. I just had a question about materials, and I was wondering, on the storefront it says MDO or Trex trim, and so I'm just curious what the thoughts are for the wood. It sounds like when I think of MDO, I think of panels, and when I think of Trex, I think of plastic trim, but it says or. So what's going on there?
David, good point here. The MDO are panels. You are most correct. I'm guessing that the substructure is going to be some most likely womanized, attaching MDO, 3/4 inch MDO, and then the trim work will be a Trex or a plastic type material. We suffer downtown with all beautiful wood rotting all the time. And fortunately, a lot of the Trex material looks identical to wood. Fortunately, again, being a non-contributing building, we have some flexibility here. So if the clarification is MDO as the actual panels, and then it's detailed and trim with the Trex. And if possible, and there'll be probably some situations where it may be actual wood. But I hope that answers your question, David.
Yes, it does. And I just have a follow-up. I'm assuming it's smooth Trex and not the textured wood pattern Trex. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Very
sir.
good. Thanks.
Okay, I believe Commissioner Beeson had a question.
Yeah, sure. So Ed, on site, we had mentioned this, and I didn't bring it up in my kind of observation site report. But you and I had kind of talked about so Jill has this up on the screen. So there's these little elements that have the steel lintels. The section detail that we did get, I think yesterday or today, doesn't show any direct work on those, and kind of addressing any through wall flashing or any attempt of flashing over those. It's certainly an area that, anytime water can get in, it's going to get in there and it's going to cause that steel to heave. So we wanted to hear for the rest of the commissioners how some of those steel lintels might be protected in this effort.
Connie, this might be the only time I'm going to let you chat with you, but I think, John, as you and I spoke there on site, I think the idea would be is that I think the correct way to do it would be to go into the mortar with some type of flashing material, whether it be an aluminum base or possibly even a copper flashing to go into the mortar, if you will, and then come out with just a small overhang onto the trim board, if you will, at the very top at a slight angle, just so that the water will repel rather than just sit up there. Again, you point out a very good point with all of our structures down there. The exact same problem is the proper type of flashing. I'm guessing that we probably won't go copper just because of the expense, but some simple aluminum color coordinated, or may even have to paint it to match the coloring of the painting details.
The intent is to do all the flashing on that appropriately. John, those details haven't all been figured out yet, but
Okay.
something similar to what Ed has said. Yeah.
Okay.
This was an early section.
Yeah.
I keep Connie away from all that stuff.
Commissioner Rockland, I believe, has another question.
Yeah, I have a clarifying question. I'm going to save it though. It's for it's for staff. Should I ask it now?
Please.
It's not a pro.
Go ahead.
Okay. If you go back to the front elevations, yeah, for storefronts that we see downtown, especially for more modern storefronts like we're looking for on the left there, we often see a transom line of windows going all the way across the storefront. So I'm just curious to hear from staff, and then maybe I'll have a follow-up question for the applicants. But Jill, what am I seeing here, and why are there not transoms here? And is that okay because of why?
I think that's okay because it's not a contributing building.
Okay.
And these windows, if you put a transom across here, I don't feel like the proportions work. I don't know if it's that this beam is lower than typical on downtown buildings. Let me see if I can get if I have a photo of the neighboring buildings. I don't think I do. I mean, here it certainly looks higher, but now it's almost like the storefront has been reduced to this height. So all of the transom, all of this is missing.
It's buried.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a typical 12-foot. And I
Right.
think that's where you're going with it, David.
Right.
I appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah.
So
Thank
if you put
you.
if you
Yeah.
built in a transom here, it would just look kind of stubby.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that clarification, and thanks, Ed, for pointing that out. Yeah, it's not that full 12-foot bay that is often what we're seeing on Main Street. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other commissioners with questions? I'm not seeing any. So I'd like to open up the public hearing for this item. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about this application at 121 and 123 East Liberty. We'll look to Brett here. Do we have any callers?
Nope, if anybody's interested, please press *9 or raise your hand. And I'm seeing none.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brett. I'm assuming we don't have any additional questions from the commissioners, so we'll now close the public hearing portion of this application. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion on this application? Commissioner Quijano, please.
Thank you. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 121 and 123 East Liberty Street, a contributing property in the Main Street Historic District, to replace 3 storefronts and several display windows. The work as proposed is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and the relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for storefronts and the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular Standard 9 and the guidelines for storefronts.
Support.
Okay, so that was moved by Commissioner Quijano and supported by Commissioner White. Is there discussion on the motion? I am not seeing any discussion on the motion. Okay. Should we move to a vote? Yes, okay. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 All those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Your application has been approved. You will receive written notice from staff. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning work on your project. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you all very much and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
you.
Have a wonderful evening.
Yeah,
You
do
too.
this.
We'll now move on to F4, 216 North State Street. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give us the staff report?
Bear with me for one moment.
Of course, take your time.
Thank you. All right, 216 North State Street. This large two-story house is listed in the 1868 city directory as 16 North State, the home of Stephen Webster of Miller and Webster Bank, established 1855. Its exact construction date is unknown. Features 2.5 stories, a mansard roof, a stone foundation, and stone front porch with heavy columns. At some point, several dormers were added or expanded on the roof. Though the work would not be considered appropriate today, the roof retains its uniqueness and character, and the original form is readily apparent. The HDC approved an application in 2018 to replace tin shingles that you see here with composite wood shakes. You'll see those in the next photo. And the applicant is seeking HDC determination on the status of their detached garage as contributing or non-contributing. They also seek to demolish and rebuild the garage, though no drawings are included with this application. Here is the garage in question. These two houses used to be on the same lot. This one probably came first, and then this one was added on, and then presumably the garage was built after that. It does show up on the 1925 Sanborn fire insurance map. You see it here, 2-story. The A means automobile. I think it's important that you note that this says 2-story because it's a unique design that I haven't seen before in Ann Arbor's historic districts. Presumably there used to be, let me get a better photo first. Presumably there used to be some sort of a door in the front here. This siding has been replaced just on this second floor in the gable. And a few strips on the side, but the rest of this is wood lap siding. Walking around the building, let's see, this would be the west elevation. You can see that there are windows that are boarded up. Some siding is missing. This, I think I called it a stone trough in the application, but it's not really a trough because it's open on the end. Commissioner Beeson was theorizing that maybe it was a stairwell to go down to a basement that was under the garage at some point. That seems as logical a guess as any. This is the other side, one window that's boarded up. There's lots of decay and deterioration on this building. When you look at it closely, it's really just not been maintained well. It's been shored up, but it hasn't been attended to in a while. It does have new doors on the front. They're replacement doors. These are some of those boards that you can see that were also replaced, probably just rotted out. But there are lots of places where boards are missing. The whole structure, oh, here's that concrete thing. See, they put it next to the wall and then sort of trimmed out around it. It's very odd. but the walls behind it have rotted out. I took a couple pictures of the interior. The ones that the applicant provided are better, but I just included these since this is what the review committee saw. We didn't go inside of it. It's got a very precipitous lean in a couple of different directions, and it wasn't the kind of thing that we wanted to find ourselves inside of. You can see just a lot of these wall studs. They don't even reach the floor. You're seeing daylight all over the place. All right, these are the applicant's photos. They're a little bit clearer. Note that the first story is leaning to the left here. The whole structure is leaning forward. And here on the interior, you see the rotted studs that no longer reach the ground. Some of them have been sistered, some of them have not, but there's still a lot of rot down there. Some of them have had boards added on that aren't full height. I'm not sure what that's doing for it. Structurally, maybe nothing. You can see up here, discontinuous studs. The joists up for the ceiling up above, the floor up above have decayed. We weren't able to, I think there's a hole over here on the side where you could climb up and stick your head in. We did not do that, so I'm not sure what's going on in that second floor. There aren't any windows, so it's probably just really dark up there. And again, we're back to the same situation where you're being asked whether or not this is a contributing structure. The same definitions of contributing resource and non-contributing resource apply. On this garage, the visible exterior materials and forms that are from the period of significance include the original footprint, 4 walls and 2 stories, as backed up by the sandboard map, narrow lap siding with corner boards. There's a slight overhang that protects the double leaf doors. There's 2 single sash window openings on the west and 1 on the east that are boarded but retain their trim and sills, and exposed rafter tails. Non-historic materials and forms include the replacement double leaf doors and the siding that's been replaced on the second floor front gable and on the lower 4 courses of the south elevation. Once again, Secretary of Interior Standard 4 is important to keep in mind that changes to a property that have acquired historic significance in their own right will be retained and preserved. Let's see, this garage on the Sanborn maps does not change in the 1931 or the 1948 Sanborns, and it was not present in 1916. So it was built between 16 and 25. So the application was requesting to reconstruct it in matching materials and matching dimensions, but those plans aren't provided. So there are suggested motions that you can use or discard at will, but there are several of them. There's one if you want to use, if you think it's a contributing structure that's repairable, meaning it just stays and gets repaired. If you think it's a contributing structure that's deteriorated beyond repair, then I've suggested a motion that includes that it will be replaced with a replica garage using matching materials in matching dimensions. In that case, it would probably have to be shifted 3 feet forward because it's right on the property line right now, and it wouldn't meet zoning requirements. Elevation drawings and details would have to be approved by staff and a majority of the officers of the HDC before staff may sign off on a building permit for a replica garage. If you chose to do it that way, you could also just require them to come back with drawings of what they're going to build. If you think it's a non-contributing structure, if you think it's lost its contributing status, then there's a third motion suggested in that case. So not trying to be confusing, but as you're sorting through this, keep these different scenarios in mind for when it's time to come and make a motion on this application. And that concludes staff's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioners Beeson and Epperson were on the review committee. Would you please give us your report and recommendations?
Sure, I can go. Yeah, so contributing, not contributing, we can certainly try to discuss that part. I mean, the staff report is pretty complete on multiple areas in terms of its historic context. In terms of its current condition, it's kind of a, I don't know, it's a sad condition. If there was ever a case of neglect, this would be it. There's just a lot going on that's not good for this building and for this accessory structure, and it is definitely very close to falling down. It is a little bit of wood sheathing is holding it together, and we didn't even want to go inside. But beyond that, you know, there are just like the previous garage application, there are certainly a lot of materials that indicate kind of the period of significance for me, and definitely some of the ways that it was constructed showed and highlighted some areas of significance as well. So, you know, by and large, this is a structure that to me seems like a demolition by neglect problem, and is historically significant, and contributing, and should be fully rebuilt.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to add to what Ms. Thatcher's report or what Commissioner Beeson stated. I pretty much agree that it's in really poor condition. As has been stated, we're not really sure what's holding it up at this point, other than probably some sheathing and some shear support somehow. Maybe some of those additional studs that have been added are helping in that, but the studs on the interior, most of them don't even touch the ground, and are completely rotted out. I do think this meets the criteria for contributing structure. It was there during the period of significance. It has the majority of the features are still there, the original opening, siding, even the shape of the garage itself. And especially looking back, you know, at the house, I think it's interesting too. One street view, the house itself has some of the large overhangs on on State Street that are very similar to what's on the garage in that second story overhang. I think that's an interesting little feature or nod back to the house. So I do think that this is a contributing structure that should be rebuilt. I don't know that it's actually, I don't think it's repairable at this point. I don't have anything else to add.
Thank you, Commissioners Epperson and Beeson. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record? And do you have anything to add to the staff report or review committee?
Hi, thank you all so much. My name is Katie Bowinkle. I am with Oxford Companies, the managing agent of this property owned by Draprop Corporation. And the address that we have is 777 East Eisenhower, Suite 850, Ann Arbor, 48108. And I don't have anything else to add. It's our hope that we'll be able to demolish and rebuild a replica that can be maintained in that area.
Thank you, Katie. We have just gotten some technical difficulties here. We've lost Jill and Brett. I'm getting some messages here, so we're going to have to just hang tight for a second.
Okay.
If that's okay with everybody. I'm getting word right now. Sorry, I'm just getting orders here. We are okay to proceed. So we're going to proceed here, if that's possible. But if we get to a point where we have to wait, we will wait. Let's see here. So do we have any questions for the applicant?
Sure.
Okay, Commissioner Rockland, great.
Are there drawings for what you want to build if it's shown that I guess we go with something that's deteriorated beyond repair.
At this point, there are not. I have a contractor working with an architect that is sketching a replica of what is existing.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? I'm not seeing any. Now is the time when we would open up the public hearing for this item. And this is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about the application at 216 North State Street. But we don't have Brett to tell us if we have any callers or pressing *9. So we will pause for a second. And I guess we'll continue on here. I think I'm getting some direction here. All right, so we will move on. And is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion on this application? Commissioner Beeson.
So I guess it depends on which one we pick, right?
Correct.
And so is that something we have to go through on discussion, I imagine, or ahead of time, or is that something I just throw out first?
That's a great question. I would think we should discuss that first. But I think we have to have a motion on the table to discuss.
Yes. So maybe I just pick one and do it, and then we discuss?
I think so.
I think so.
Okay. Here I go. I'm going to pick one.
Yes, please. Thank you, Commissioner.
I move that the single car garage at 216 North State Street in the Old Fourth Ward Historic District be classified as a contributing structure because of its presence during the period of significance for the Old Fourth Ward Historic District and the historic integrity of its design, massing, characteristics, and materials. Further, it is determined that the garage is deteriorated beyond repair and may be replaced with a replica garage using matching materials and matching dimensions located on the same footprint or shifted up to 3 feet to meet zoning requirements. Elevation drawings and details must be approved by staff and a majority of the officers of the HTC before staff may sign off on a building permit for the replica garage.
Support.
Okay, so that was moved by Commissioner Beeson and supported by Commissioner White. Now we can discuss the motion. Is there any discussion from the commissioners? Commissioner Rockland.
Sure. I mean, in terms of like the difference between repairable and deteriorated beyond repair, it just seems like, I don't know, it seems like they could almost be the same thing, but every single piece of structure needs to be replaced, it looks like, and every piece of finish wood also needs to be replaced. They're all rotted, and the windows and door really aren't existing. So it seems like if it is contributing, then I'm in agreement with Commissioner Beeson that I suppose that's what deteriorated beyond repair means. So I agree there. I also agree that it is contributing because of the points laid out in the staff report that gives enough there that that in terms of the contributing portion that it's still even though everything that I just said that needs to be replaced, there's enough there to that it's maintaining its historic integrity. I guess one question I have for the group is is it obvious that the trough / stairwell thing is not part of the contributing portion and that part should not be rebuilt?
I agree.
So I would say, to answer that question, Commissioner Rockland, on the concrete trough area, the concrete definitely has age to it. but it is not, in my mind, of the way that it was poured and the aggregate that was used, indicative of concrete that would be like 1920, 1910. That doesn't mean that it's not, it just didn't seem to indicate that. And that the way that they kind of had to put the new trim up and around it, it just also seemed to indicate that that was done at a period that was past the 50s in my mind. It just, again, it seemed like it. I can't ascertain whether or not how accurate I am on that. It just seemed that way. So it's kind of a feeling, not necessarily fact. So that's a hard judgment to make. In terms of the materials within the rest of the project and whether or not we're at this point of like deteriorated beyond repair, like I felt like there was a lot of salvageable materials, but to be able to get this building back in its like relatively plumb condition, it would be almost replacing, 30 to 50% of the vertical studs. And since it's balloon framed, you would have to sister them, and you'd have to sister them a pretty big extent at that point. So, it's like, I see a lot of salvageable material that could easily be used to rebuild a new structure with a lot of new studs being put in to hold it. Whether or not they're going to do that, I don't know. It's hard to say that in this sort of motion because we can't really dictate as part of our commission to say, hey, you got to reuse all the materials, right? It would be great if they did, but I don't think we can do that. I wish we could, but I don't think we can. So yeah, it's kind of a weird position because, we have this really weird, difficult line of trying to decide whether or not something is deteriorated beyond repair. And to me, we've got a structure that's probably 80% of the materials are probably okay, but the materials that are of the 20% that are deteriorated, it's 20% that is really significant to holding up the structure. That's it. Commissioner Epperson may have some more comments on it too.
I actually completely agree with that assessment because I don't know that I have much more to add, honestly, because I agree with that. You could go in and, try to shore up a lot of the existing studs, but then you'd be replacing the majority of that or leaving it in place and still building, putting in almost all new structure to prop it back up if you can get it back in a plumb condition. And then there would be areas of siding that you'd have to replace along with that. I'm just trying to think, foundationally, how getting it to connect back to the original footprint, is that something that's worth it? Or is it, to rebuild this entire garage in new condition where it would actually be sustained for another, indefinite period of time under proper care and maintenance, that, is that more of a benefit than trying to shore up some existing material that some of it's good and some of it's not. So I would say is getting to a point where it's pretty much beyond repair with the existing materials that are there. I do agree that there are materials that could be salvaged, and it would be nice if some of those materials could be salvaged and reused in certain portions if they would be, make sense to do so and, can blend in with new materials. I would support that if that were a possibility. And as far as the concrete, the garage is leaning, as we've indicated, and it's definitely pulling away from that concrete structure that's there. It doesn't appear that it was ever attached at one point, that it was more just up against the building. And I also agree with Commissioner Beeson's assessment that it looks like an older concrete material, but what age? If was it original, where did it go? I don't think it was necessarily part of the original feature, other than maybe that little trim piece, but I'm not sure if that's a significant enough trim piece that we'd want to call out.
Okay, it looks like we have Ms. Thatcher and Brett back on the line. Are you both with us now? There's Brett.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think the city IT network gods kicked both Jill and I briefly out of the meeting, but I think we're back.
No worries. Yeah, it looks like you're both are back. The only thing that we are discussing a motion currently, but we did not have opened the public hearing portion of the item for opportunity for public to speak for up to 3 minutes because we didn't have Brett on the line. So should we go back and provide that opportunity here?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So right now we're going to go back and open the public hearing for this item. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about the application at 216 North State Street. Brett, do we have any callers?
And after all of that ceremony, we have no callers.
Okay, fair enough, but we've provided the opportunity to press *9 for anyone.
And then if you said that you were discussing a motion, would it be possible to just revisit who made the motion, who seconded it, and which of the three you're proceeding?
Commissioner Beeson, do you mind clarifying which motion that you read? Mute.
See, when I do that, I just totally leave the meeting. So.
Yes, it was the contributing structure that is deteriorated beyond repair, the middle.
Thank you.
Yep, and that was supported by Commissioner White, I believe.
Thank you.
Yep. So shall we continue discussing that motion? Do we have any other commissioners with thoughts on that motion specific? Not, sorry, Ms. Stafford.
Evan, one thing I just noticed about that motion is that the way it is suggested, it says it's determined that the garage is deteriorated beyond repair and may be replaced with a replica garage. Okay. I think it should say shall be replaced with a replica garage per the application.
Commissioner Beeson, would you mind editing?
That is a friendly amendment that I would support. Do I need to replay it, or you got it?
No, I support that.
So that's
okay. May to shall. Thank you.
So I believe that if we all are sort of in agreement with this motion, but we do not have any sort of information on what the replica is, we could postpone this application until we have appropriate drawings and what will be done here. Throwing that out there to see if there's any support for that.
I support that
idea. So Commissioner White is interested in that. Any other commissioners?
Evan, I think it depends if you want the entire commission to approve the drawings, or if you're okay, it says with staff and a majority of the officers of the HDC approving those drawings. So
correct.
You make the
call. I'm saying
yeah.
I think it's worthwhile to have the whole commission look at it. That's what I'm getting at. So
yeah,
but I'm just throwing it out there if any other commissioners have thoughts on it.
I agree with you. I think it's nice if everyone can see it and make a comment and move on.
Okay. Rockland. Any other commissioners or any other thoughts or comments?
I can't remember now. The amendment, the language specifically about was shall be replaced with a replica garage. Is it per the application or as? I mean,
I just replaced may with shall.
Okay.
Shall
so
replace with a replica garage using matching materials and matching dimensions, because that's what the application said. I didn't add the per the application bit.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. So I guess.
No,
I just wanted to clarify. Because yeah, you're right. There are no drawings that we're looking at.
No, so. they're not. And so, yeah, you can say replica, but I'd like the commission to see what it is what's
being presented or what will be presented.
Yeah. But maybe you guys don't feel this. I'm just throwing it out.
Although, is this similar to, maybe I'm mixing things up, but similar to the earlier garage application where right now we're just determining its status and
Well, the
then
motion-
drawings are to come, right? Or
The application stated
that they would
that they wanted to
replace.
replace the garage. So
Okay.
you'd need to take some sort of action on
Yeah.
the replacement bit, either to put off approving the whole thing because you need the plans, or, or going with what's in the motion right now.
I just
As an
can't think of a
alternate.
time where we've approved something without ever seeing it.
Well, the key to a replica is that it looks the same.
Okay, that's fine. I guess so, but I just.
They're gonna leave.
But
Right.
totally fine if you guys want to review it again.
I just don't want us to get, I mean, sorry, I'm just trying to put my thoughts together.
Well, let me talk while you put your
Yes.
thoughts together. I think what
Yeah.
will happen is that we can approve this motion as it is. When the drawings are complete, the applicant will send the drawings to Jill. Ms. Thatcher will, if they look good, Ms. Thatcher will send them on to Anna, Evan, and me. We will make sure that when it's, the elevation is wood and the windows are, like everything is clear. So I think that if you guys are fine with that, then let's approve the motion. If everyone wants to see it, then let's postpone the motion. But postponing the motion only works if the drawings are ready by next meeting, right? So this way, it just allows, we approve this, and then whenever the drawings come in, we will make sure that, in fact, the replica is the replica. John's got a comment.
I think the
Commissioner
officers should approve it. That way, we can vote on this tonight, and then when the drawings come in, as David said, then the officers approve that with Jill's in agreement. It's a done deal. We can do that all tonight.
Commissioner Beeson, I believe you had maybe something to add?
Sure. The thing I was going to add is I think it also might be very good to have drawings of the existing conditions, survey drawings, or something that actually goes out there and measures what we've got going on. That way we know that the new proposal will actually match that.
Terrific point, Commissioner Beeson. Thank you. So I'm okay with either. I just wanted to give the opportunity if commissioners wanted to see it again. So there's a couple of commissioners, I'm not sure how they feel about.
But we could vote for the motion, up or down.
Can we add the documentation requirement to the motion?
The existing conditions?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea. Commissioner Beeson, are you with us still?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm snacking on food. I just didn't want anyone.
Yeah,
to
no,
see
that's
me.
totally fine.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Yeah. So you
So
would
what
add,
would you like to add to the motion?
Existing drawing or, yeah, something along those lines. What do we call those?
documentation of existing conditions.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Evan. Documentation of existing conditions.
So that would be what's
It's almost
already
like-
been submitted, basically.
Well, it didn't.
They can draw it up, but the drawings for the replica are going to look just like the drawings of the existed with boarded up windows.
Well,
right?
yes and no. No, because the
Well-
existing condition should show the slope. It should
So
show
you
it
want drawings of the existing conditions?
that to
of
me would actually
elevations?
indicate, yeah, like how it's actually
Okay.
tipping and what its actual condition is before this thing's actually being torn down.
Wouldn't annotated photos also be enough?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just documenting it somehow.
Documenting it. That's
Okay.
what it is.
Photos with annotation, notes on the drawings, on the photos that say the quality, right? So the photo shows you like what you're looking at, and then the note would say the quality of the material that's there.
It's been a long time since I've done as-built existing historic drawings.
Yeah, and like, I mean,
Got it.
Key features or details. I know it's pretty simple structure, but I was just looking through the packet to see if there was a close-up of those rafter tails or, something like that would be.
And I don't know, like in the interior, it's got to meet code. So the span of the joists and all that stuff, that's going to change, but it would still be, in my mind, again, it's just my mind. I don't think we actually need it for the end built construction, but you would also document like what the joist spacing is and what those studs are. They might be only 2x4s, and the new code's going to require 2x6 for the floor. As an example.
Yes. So, commissioners, would you like to vote on the motion as it's been amended?
Yes.
Seeing yes. Okay. So then we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Your application has been approved. You'll receive written notice from staff. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning your project. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move on to hearing F5. It's at 106 North 4th Avenue. Sorry. Okay, now we have a conflict.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Jill, could you make me a co-host again so I can tend to the attendee list?
Brett, I can't. Since I had to come in through a web browser instead of through my normal Zoom route, it won't let me do that for you. So I'll just do that for the rest of the night. Yeah, making you a host isn't an option for me anymore.
Okay, so we have a conflict of interest on this application. So let's see, would Commissioner Epperson demote herself to the waiting?
I'm going to demote you.
Yep.
Quite all right.
Okay.
Okay, she's out.
This was set up for someone for Commissioner Epperson. So Ms. Thatcher, would you please give the staff report?
Sure. Give me one moment here. I'm promoting our panelists. All right, 106 North 4th Avenue is in the Main Street. I'm sorry, it's not in the Main Street Historic District. It's in the 4th Anne Historic District. And this is the Art Deco Land Title Building. Cross your fingers that share screen will still work. All right. Wait, where did my video go? Guys, this is a crazy meeting.
Yeah, this has been an IT difficulty.
We gave them a warning at the beginning that this could be technical difficulty.
Oh, I'm back. Just a second. PowerPoint's the PowerPoint's reloading.
Well, we've been at this for a year, so you'd think things would be running smoothly by now after 12 months of this.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, these are new problems.
Yeah.
I still forgot to unmute David, so it still exists,
That's good.
Almost there. PowerPoint's taking a while. So this building was designed by the University of Michigan professor of architecture, Albert J.J. Rousseau. And I just want to show it to you because it's such a cool building. All right, I'm sharing something.
It's flashing.
Really flashing.
There.
No, there we go.
All right. Sorry to make you sit through all this. Hooray. Oh, come on. Phew. All right, can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes? Okay, I thought it kicked me out again. All right. So this was added onto the front of an older building, this Art Deco facade, and it features smooth limestone, tall leaded glass windows, an ornate deco cornice, and recessed tiles. I said black, but these are actually dark green. The side and rear walls are common brick. Staff approved a new roof in 2014 and the infill of 3 small basement windows with glass on the north elevation in 2010. And it's on North 4th Avenue, north of East Huron and south of East Ann Street. The applicant seeks HDC approval to add 2 floors to the single-story rear wing, build a roof deck, install a window in a boarded opening, that's this one, on the 4th floor north elevation, and perform restoration work on the historic windows and masonry. I hope you all had time to go through this packet because it's one of the more complete applications that we've received in a long time. Walking around the building, this is the back. This portion, this 1-story portion, is the back wall. This was built in the late 1940s. It was 47 or 49. So this is not a contributing part of the structure. Here it is from the other side. This is the building next door at the corner of 4th and Huron that had Rosie's Barbershop in it, etc. Thank you, Brett. He says he's going to stay and take notes. I appreciate that. This is the wall between, this is 106 North 4th, and this is the county building next door. This is just a little tiny opening. You can't get in there or anything. I just stuck my camera in there, took a picture. Here we are with the whole bowling alley of a lot. This is the alley in the back. This is where you can walk down that ramp to get into the county building, presumably. There are usually people hanging out down here at the end. It's just off of the property at 106 North 4th. The proposal is to add a 2nd and 3rd floor on top of that 1-story addition on the back. It would just stay there the way it is. This is a black box, literally, clad with black Meteon unicolor cladding. It's paneled cladding. The architect met us at the review committee visit and showed us a sample of that. From the front elevation, you would see this 3rd-story portion in elevation view, and just over the cornice here, you see that there's a window wall leading out onto a roof deck. Here's what it looks like from the south elevation. This is the building in front. Here is the 2nd and 3rd floor, and actually it's a little bit deeper. It goes to this dashed line. This would be the new addition volume-wise. Right now the parapet steps down. One addition was added here, and another addition was added here. So there's a step down here. That would be filled in with brick to bring it all up to the same level and to provide ceiling space on the inside and this walkout onto a roof deck. This screen that you see here is a glass wind screen. It's on top of a fairly tall parapet. And I think that this adds about another 5 feet on top of that. But it is clear and it's pretty far back on the building.
Jill, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't see your cursor. I don't know if others can see it.
Me neither.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. You're just gonna.
FYI.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try to describe it better.
Can
No,
you
it's
go
not, just
into presentation mode instead of edit mode? Is that gonna? I don't want you to get kicked out again.
yeah, I didn't know if that was
I
gonna.
know. This was, I started there and had to go to here just to get into the meeting.
Just leave it. Sorry.
Yeah.
As a sharer of screens. Okay, so you'll see in the middle, there's something that looks like a little fence. That's a windscreen off to the left of the black clad addition. And right in the very middle of the screen is where the infill bricks will be on top of the parapet to raise up that parapet wall. All right, now moving on to the other elevation. This is on the north side. Same thing's happening over here. The parapet right in the middle of your screen is getting raised up, infilled with brick. There's a windscreen on top of that, which will make more sense in just a moment. Down in the lower right, you see that boarded up window that I showed you a photo of. That's where new window system is going in to match the one right next door to it. And then there's a series of 6 double hung windows. Those are wood windows. Those are all remaining and being repaired and restored. They have stone sills, and Robin Adair is going to be working on those, as well as the casement windows, the metal ones on the front of the building. That's part of the restoration plan, and I emailed you additional details about that that were provided by the applicant. Here are footprints. Starting from the bottom, you see the basement plan. The left side where it says unexcavated on the bottom drawing, that's the oldest part of the building. Then you see 1927 addition, and finally 1949 addition on the right. Moving up one floor plan to the first floor, similar, you see the 1949 addition in teal on the right. Moving up to the second floor plan, you see the proposed addition in blue. And then up to the top to it's labeled penthouse plan. That's the blue, it's really just a stairwell and a little bit of usable space. And then on the top floor, it's leading out onto the proposed roof. See where it says proposed roof, just above that is a row of little squares. That's a walkable skylight to get light down into that second floor. All right, these are renderings from the architect. So the one in the upper right-hand corner is of particular interest. That's where you see the new black box. It is a little bit taller than the front, but it is very far back on the building. It almost reads like there's a separate building going on back there. It really doesn't seem to have any relationship to the rest of the building, with the exception of that little windscreen that's going around. But that's a pretty minor thing to pick up on if you're a person walking down the street. So this is another one of those additions where you can see it if you're looking for it, but if you're not looking for it, I believe that it's really not going to be noticeable, and certainly doesn't detract from the Art Deco front facade of the building, which is really the historic character-defining feature that we're concerned about here. Also keep in mind that at the corner of 4th and Huron, like in the upper right-hand corner and the lower left-hand corner, that's a lot that is likely to be redeveloped. It is not in a historic district, and it is zoned D1 or D2 for downtown zoning. So I've never heard of any talk of redeveloping that site, but it is vacant right now, and it seems likely that at some point somebody's going to build something much taller there. Okay, upper left-hand corner and lower right-hand corner, you can see the new deck and the parapet wall and the wind screen on top of that. You can also see very well the row of skylights. It's a large row of skylights. And then the third floor, the new room with a walkout wall of windows to get out onto the deck. There's a little opening you can see there facing the west, so that you can get out onto the roof if you need to service mechanical units or something that are up there. And some of those are indicated on the plans as well. These are photos of existing conditions. It's that white building that I'm talking about that seems likely to be redeveloped at some point. All right, from the Secretary of Interior Standards, I have not read you number 1, which says a property will be used as it was historically or given a new use that requires minimal change to its distinctive materials, features, spaces, and spatial relationships. I've read number 2 and number 9 to you already. The guidelines for alterations or additions recommend designing additions to roofs, such as residential, office, or storage spaces, elevator housings, decks and terraces, or dormers or skylights, when required by the new use that they are inconspicuous from the public right-of-way and do not damage or obscure character-defining structures. From the district or neighborhood setting section of additions, it's not recommended to introduce new construction into historic districts that's visually incompatible or that destroys historic relationships within the setting. It is recommended to consider the attached exterior addition, both in terms of the new use and the appearance of other buildings in the historic district or neighborhood. Design for the new work may be contemporary or may reference design motifs from the historic building. Obviously, these are uber contemporary. From the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for all additions, it's appropriate to design a new addition in a manner that makes clear what is historic and what is new. It is also appropriate to locate and design a new addition so that significant site features are not lost or damaged, and to design a new addition in a manner that makes clear what's historic and what is new. All right. The bank of skylights is about 30 feet long by about 3 feet 10 inches. The restoration plan includes repairing wood and metal windows, repointing the stone and brickwork on the entire building, masonry repairs, and replacing the parapet coping as necessary. Staff believes that the aluminum window being installed on the first floor is totally appropriate and will match the one next to it. Since the proposal is adding floor area, a site plan will need to be approved by City Council. And the design and scale of the proposed addition does not detract from the existing building and uses distinct materials to differentiate it from the historic structure. Overall, staff feels that the integrity and character defining features of the building and the district will not be harmed, and staff recommends approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. We had Commissioners Beeson and Rockman on the review committee. Would you please give us your reports and recommendations?
Go ahead, David.
Sure. Okay. Well, this application was very thorough and of very high quality, as noted. And I guess I'll just say that I think the staff report was also very thorough and very high quality, I guess, like usual. But there's so much was just said because there is so much being done to this building. And it's really, an incredible project that they're undergoing here. And I think that, maybe quality is, like high quality is sort of an overarching theme of this project. So it's always nice to see some, a team working at that high level, not just in sort of, their own goals, but also when those goals align, with the goals of the historic district, which I feel like they do in this case. It really is nice to see, and I appreciate it. So just a couple notes maybe here to add. One, just the front parapet is quite high. The historic parapet, and so I was asking on site the architect David, just on the plans that there's the air handling units that are drawn. Those actually haven't been sized yet, but there's two things working for them in terms of hiding those from the right-of-way, which they plan on doing. Maybe we can hear more, but the plan is, first of all, like I said, the parapet is very high there. So chances are, hopefully they will be hidden. And then if the air handling units are larger than expected, they said that they would move them back from that front wall enough so that they're not going to be seen at least from the front, I would imagine. So there's that to note. The addition is like the very front of the addition, according to the drawings, is 72 feet back from the front. So it's very well back from the street. And it's less than 2 feet higher than the very top of the parapet. So just trying to kind of picture what the addition's going to look like. And I guess, the renderings really do lend a hand there as well. There is a similar type project to this, just 2 doors down, and it's, I guess, mentioned in their application. And so we were looking around, just kind of to see what else has been done. And there's it's a sort of a similar style building. It's got a similar addition in the back. So it just seems like this addition is, it feels compatible with the building. It also feels compatible with the surroundings. I will also mention that the restoration or the rehabilitation, I guess, of the historic portion is noted, that it will be done by local quality craftsmen. So I feel pretty confident that that's going to be done in a manner that's going to respect the historic integrity of what's there. Okay, that's my report.
Great building, great details on this building. Wood windows are in fantastic shape. We also looked at the steel windows in pretty good detail to try and dig in. And it does, they sent this to us in the following emails that came out later, but it does look like they were not, the steel windows were not painted over. And they do have this kind of dark color to them, but they also have this kind of rust color to them. So it's kind of a weird mix. Like the proposed scope is to scrape the windows to get the rust off. And then I think they said that they were going to apply a little bit of paint. Is that right, Jill? I think that's what they had intended on saying that they were going to do. And then the full wood window restoration is certainly a great idea. Once those have the weather stripping on the horizontals and the verticals and everything is tightened up, we suggested the storms and they seemed amenable to adding that, which they did in this application. So it's good to see that as well. The terracotta is in fantastic shape. It's got some minor settling here and there, but nothing that will require a large amount of tuck pointing. Like the tuck pointing that did exist was really, really minor. But on the brick side, I would say that there was probably some areas that certainly needed some tuck pointing, but nothing like out of the ordinary that we would see. So by and large, it's a building that is still in phenomenal shape. And it's great to see that they're, trying to keep this going. Other aspects of it. Oh, the front door. I remember staring at the front door for a bit because I don't think it was original. Jill, do you remember looking at that either, or David? You're muted, Jill, if you're talking.
I don't.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'm looking through all their photos now to see if it'll spark a memory back here.
Yeah, I'm trying to share the screen. It's being wonky again.
Yeah. I really don't think that front door was original.
There's a photo on page 4 of the packet. I don't know if there's one later.
444. For the PDF?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that one's.
It looks like a
far away. Yeah, but it looks like an aluminum. Yeah, it's like an aluminum thing that was added. So I don't. What it was, I guess it was unclear to me in this scope whether or not they're gonna update that door or not. Yeah, let me zoom in on the drawings here too. We could ask all of the applicant. Yeah, it just says existing entry. So yeah, I'm not sure if the front door is gonna work on it, but it's a door that I remember looking at going, this doesn't seem to match. And I'm not really sure that it was weather tight. There was an indication in the terracotta that there was a light right above the door in the terracotta, which is kind of neat. So they had a terracotta piece that kind of extended over the front door, and you could tell that there was a little piece of plexiglass in there, like a frosted glass, and they're checking to see if there was a light in there. I thought that was a really neat aspect of it, and encourage them to kind of flush that out and see what they find. I think that, oh, there it is. It's on page 26 of the PDF in our packet. This is the extended application showing that. So, and you can see like the joints at like the land LA and then the B spacing. You can tell that that probably needs a little tuck pointing and get some mortar in there, but it's so tight. It would be really tough to do that. But you can tell that the small amount of mortar has fallen out in those areas. Oh, yeah, you got a good front door picture, but do you have you probably don't have the packet, right, Jill, on their slideshow? No. I'll point the commissioners to it. If you open your packet to page 26, it's got a really great view of the front.
Normally I could open the packet.
Something's messed
Show
up.
you anything you want.
Yeah.
I never thought to look up below that, standing below that piece.
Yeah, I was staring around. I was like, oh, look at that. But you can see like some of the tuck pointing, and it's causing some small effervescence down at the bottom of the door, or at the head of the door. And so making sure that that gets sealed up, because you can tell moisture is coming in through the terracotta and sitting into those little areas where it's causing that effervescence. So if we could get that to seal along those terracotta joints, it would stop the effervescence from showing up. And then we'd have to clean it over and over again to get rid of it. All right. But that was long-winded. Go ahead, Evan.
Okay.
There's a lot on this building to get excited over, so it's tough to stop.
Terrific. Thank you both. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record? And you have 5 minutes to add anything you would like to the staff report or review committee report. Looks like we have David and Michael here.
Hi, I'm Michael Watts. I'm the owner of the building. I live at 113 West Liberty, downtown Ann Arbor. And first, just like to thank everybody for taking the time to review the project and for your kind words about the application. We had a great time learning about the property and putting that together. Just a couple notes on the comments that you guys had. First off, on the metal windows, yes, our goal is to stop the oxidation and prevent any future rust from occurring. We weren't able to clearly determine from photos whether or not those were ever painted. So in the email, we're basically stating that, as part of the preservation, we're willing to make sure that they're sealed against future degradation, or if it is found that they were painted at some point in time, we'd be willing to match whatever historic color was appropriate for the building. In terms of the door, yes, I would say it's very undesirable for the aesthetic of the building. We do have thoughts on it, but for this scope, it's beyond those means. But do agree with you that something more fitting could be installed in the building. But in the interim, it is our goal to make sure that through all the masonry work, that everything is watertight to prevent any further erosion, and make sure that especially in the winter, water's not getting in there and causing any future issues with the building. So with that, I will do the opposite of Ed earlier and let David speak for the rest of the time. Thank you.
Well, Michael, I think you covered all the points that I had, except the only thing I wanted to add about dimensionally is that we're only adding 1 foot 9 inches to the overall height of the building. And I just wanted to put a dimension to that. So I think maybe Dave had said that it was 72-foot setback, but the overall height will be added to by just 1 foot 9 inches. Other than that, I'm open for questions. I think everything else was covered.
Okay, thank you both. Let's see here. We have commissioners. Do we have any questions for the applicants? I'm not seeing any questions right now. That's good. So we'll open up the public hearing portion for this item. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about the application at 106 North 4th Avenue. Now, is Brett with us? Can he hear? Brett, do we have any callers? Oh, there we go.
I am here. I won't be able to move callers in to speak. However, you don't have any.
Okay, that's good news. So then I will, assuming no other commissioners have comments or questions to the applicants, we'll now close the public hearing portion. And is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion on the application? Commissioner Beeson.
I'll do it. I move that the Historic District Commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 106 North 4th Avenue, a contributed property in the 4th/and Historic District, to add 2 floors to the single-story rear wing, build a roof deck, install a window and a boarded opening on the 1st floor north of elevation, and perform restoration work as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the surrounding resources, and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines, especially those for all additions and the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 1, 2, and 9, and the guidelines for alterations for a new use, additions, windows, and district neighborhood setting.
Support.
That was moved by Commissioner Beeson and supported by Commissioner White. Is there any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Rockland.
I mean, just to add on to what I've already said, I guess just real big picture, this like style, this type of intervention or addition to a building, a historic building, to me, it makes my job really easy because it's the details are minimal by design, right? So it just is very compatible with the historic building since it's so minimal, and then also it's so easily differentiated because of for the same reason. So I think that that's just kind of the big picture looking at this project. I like okay, to reiterate, very compatible and easily differentiated. So therefore, I think it meets the standards.
Great. Any other commissioners with discussion items? I'm not seeing any. I would just reiterate that it's just so wonderful to see such a thorough application, as Commissioner Rockland said, at such a high level. So well done. Well done. So we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All those opposed, please say no. Your motion carries. Your application has been approved. You will receive written notice from staff. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning work on your project. Thank you for your time, Michael and David. Okay, so now we'll move on. Do we need to bring Commissioner Epperson back in? Is that possible?
She's back.
Hey, welcome back, Commissioner Epperson. Now we'll move to hearing F6, which is at 310 South Ashley. And discussion on this will take place at a later date. There will be no staff report, but I would like to open up the public hearing for this item. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about the information being considered at 310 South Ashley. Let's check in with Brett. Brett, do we have any callers?
No, sir.
Okay. Seeing none, we will now close the public hearing for this matter, and it'll be taken up again at the April 8th, 2021 HDC meeting. Let's move on to hearing F7. 204 West Jefferson Street. Ms. Thatcher, would you please give the staff report?
Sure. So this is a 2.5-story brick gable fronter that was built in 1899 per the Polk City Directory. Everybody cross your fingers. Well, we might not get the pretty presentation view here, but this is going to have to do, I think. All right. My two screens have stopped talking to each other, so I can't queue it up in advance. So I apologize for that. All right. This house features a stone foundation and arch-topped single sash windows in the front gable and on the west elevation, both of which you can see here. The house has predominantly 1/1 windows, a full-width front porch, and a brick bump out on the first floor of the east elevation, which is on the other side of the house. Site's located on the north side of West Jefferson between South First Street and South Ashley, and the applicant is seeking after-the-fact HGC approval to reshingle a roof and infill an arch-topped stair window with glass block. So you can see here the arch-topped window. I don't have a lot of slides here because it's pretty much speaks for itself. This window, on last December, a complaint was filed through the building department for a bunch of issues on this site. The ones that concern the HGC were that work was being done on a roof without a certificate of appropriateness, and that this window had been replaced with glass block. So now the owner is doing the roof himself. Normally this would be a staff approval, but it's included with this one just because an application was going anyway and he didn't need to pay more money that way, and that work is appropriate. Though this window, however, being infilled with glass block is staff feels is not appropriate. It was boarded up in June of 2011 Google Street View photos, and then you can see that the glass blocks were there by 2014. From the Secretary of Interior standards, I've already read to you number 2. Number 5 says that distinctive materials, features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property will be preserved. Number 6 says that deteriorated historic features will be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature will match the old in design, color, texture, and where possible materials. Replacement of missing features will be substantiated by documentary and physical evidence. And I've read number 9 to you. From the guidelines for windows, it's not recommended to introduce a new design that's incompatible with the historic character of the building. It's also not recommended to change the number, location, size, or glazing pattern through cutting new openings, blocking in windows, and installing sash that does not fit the historic window opening. Or it's also not recommended to remove or radically change windows, which are important in defining the historic character of the buildings, that as a result, the character is diminished. It's also not recommended to install new windows that are incompatible with the building's historic appearance. And per the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines, it is not appropriate to use glass block to fill in openings. So the work clearly doesn't meet the Secretary of Interior standards, particularly Standard 2 or the guidelines for windows. The owner has said via the applicant who is representing him that he will replace the glass block with a window sash in the spring. So there are a couple of different motions here proposed. The first is only for the roof. The second is to approve the glass block window. If it fails, the third is to order the glass block to be replaced with a wooden sash with clear glass. This would be reviewed by staff for compatibility. There are many existing historic windows, wood windows on the house, so we can use them as a model for the new sash for the arch-topped window. And staff does recommend approval of the roof, disapproval of the glass block window, and approval of the third motion, to restore the window to its previous condition as closely as possible. Thank you.
All right. Commissioners Beeson and Epperson were on the review committee. Would you please give us the report and recommendation?
Yeah, so I don't really have anything or much to add. I think it's the windows on a pretty prominent facade. It's right on the corner of the building in a character defining position, and I think it's installing glass block is does not meet our guidelines. Have anything else to add?
Yeah, staff report I think covered everything we needed to know, and more. So yeah, I think it speaks for itself. It's pretty straightforward when you go and look at it. You're like, yeah, there's glass block there.
Great, thank you. Would the applicant please unmute your microphone, turn on your video if possible, and provide your name and address for the record? And do you have anything to add to the staff report or review committee?
We don't seem to have an applicant here tonight, at least not a name that I recognize.
Okay. So we will then open up the public hearing for this item. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about the application at 204 West Jefferson. Brett, do we have any callers?
No, just one attendee. If the attendee would like to address the Historic District Commission, you can use the raise hand function. And no indication.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's see, I'll now close the public hearing portion of this application. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion in the application? Commissioner Quijano is stepping forward.
Unmute. Okay, I'll start with roof. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the portion of the application at 204 West Jefferson Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to install an asphalt roof over the existing asphalt roof as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the surrounding resources, and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines and the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, in particular standards 2 and 9 and the guidelines for roofs.
That was moved by Commissioner Quijano and supported by Commissioner White. Is there any discussion on the motion? I'm not seeing any, so we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 All those opposed, please say no. That motion carries. The application has been approved. You will receive written notice from staff. Please note that you must apply for required permits from the city before beginning work on your project. So then I'm going to move backwards here. And is there a commissioner that would like to make a second motion? Commissioner Epperson.
I move that the commission finds that installing glass block in, oh wait, so I need to actually read the glass block window?
You do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the portion of the application at 204 West Jefferson Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, for the prior installation of glass block and an arch-topped window opening on the west elevation as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the surrounding resources, and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District's design guidelines for windows and the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, in particular standards 2, 5, 6, and 9, and the guidelines for windows.
Support.
And that was put forward by Commissioner Epperson and supported by Commissioner White. Do we have any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes. All those opposed, please say no.
No.
No. The motion does not carry. Your application has been denied. You will receive written notice from staff. So then we'll read, hopefully have one more motion here. Is there a commissioner that would like to read the motion?
Okay.
Commissioner Rockland.
Anna's got it.
Anna wants to, okay. Commissioner Epperson.
I'll do it.
Yeah, get it.
I move that the commission finds that installing glass blocks in an original window opening does not qualify for a certificate of appropriateness, and that the property owner is ordered to restore the window to its former condition by installing an arch-topped wood sash with clear glass within 60 days. Before installation, the owner must apply for and receive a building permit that includes window specifications. Staff will examine the window specifications for compatibility during the building permit review and will sign off on the building permit only if the window specifications meet the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines.
Support.
That was moved by Commissioner Epperson and supported by Commissioner White. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Rockland.
I'm just curious, like, does this window need to be a custom, I guess this window does need to be a custom window that fits within the opening and matches the existing, right? So that seems obvious. Does this window also have to be a single pane glass, or can it be insulated glass? Or
The design guidelines say it may be insulated glass.
Okay.
If they choose that.
Okay. That's all I had.
Thank you, Commissioner Rockland. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion carries. Your application has been approved. You will receive written notice from staff. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning work on your project.
The staff report up at the upper right-hand corner says F8. For legal purposes, we need to change that for F7 on the staff report.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner White. So now we'll move on to item G, new business. This is for staff approvals for the DTE gas meters. Ms. Thatcher, would you please give us the staff report?
So this is something we discussed at the annual retreat. Thank you all for being there. This was staff's way of helping DTE to streamline some of their meter permits that are coming in. There are 145 homes total that are affected in this wave of meter replacements. We've had about a dozen applications that have already been staff approved. We got 26 more a couple of days ago. And all this would do is sort of define for meters where it's appropriate to put them, and it would allow DTE to list more than one address on an application. They would still have to pay the $35 fee for each address, but this is just a way for them to sort of group them. It doesn't help me out a whole lot, but that's okay. It doesn't need to. There are 5 conditions that they would have to meet, listed on the second page of the staff report of the resolution. One is that the meter must be installed at the rear of the building or in another location not visible from the public right-of-way. That's pretty clear. That's a staff approval anyway. If DTE shows that the foregoing are not feasible, meaning there's a giant deck or some other stuff in the way that's keeping them from putting them on the back, the meter may be installed within the rear 25% of the side elevation of the building. 25% is in there as a placeholder. I know that you guys discussed a different number at the retreat, so we can change that as you see fit. Second one is that the meter has to be near grade and not physically attached to the house. It's on a little post. Third is that directional drilling must be used so that they don't dig up yards. They've already said that they're going to do that, so that's not a big deal. The fourth one is that if applications are combined, The combined submission may describe the meter size, appearance, and method of installation once, so that they don't have to attach that to every single one of them, provided that they specifically state that where they're going to be and that it's going to meet the intent of this resolution. And then the fifth thing is just that they pay the fee for each application for each property, because that just goes toward administrative work to process the application and get the certificate of appropriateness out. So if anyone has questions about this or would like to change anything, let me know. It will help to speed things up a little bit. And just for the record, I am talking to DTE about some difficult ones right now. Some are meters that have to be moved out where people won't let them in the house, or where they have strange physical configurations in the house that keep them from moving them very far. Or it may be an applicant that doesn't want their drywall messed with and just wants the meter put as close to the intake valve as right now as possible, without necessarily taking into account what it looks like from the exterior. So if you guys have any questions, let me know, or any discussion.
Commissioner Rockland.
I have some questions. First, a clarification. This is the conditions. If all are met, then you can staff approve. Is
correct.
Will there be other situations where for some reason these conditions aren't met, you're not staff approving, but then somehow they're coming before the commission?
Yes, they will.
Yes, okay, all right.
Yeah, those were the tough ones that I just mentioned at the end.
So those will come before the commission,
Mhm.
and if they, okay, very good.
Is there any other discussion on this? Commissioner Rockland.
Yeah, so I think that we should talk about just the, well, Ms. Thatcher mentioned basically 25% as a placeholder. I think it's a good start. I was thinking about this today, and I think one of the questions that would come up, especially if pretty much any way we state this, rear 25%, or if you say it shall not be in the front 10% or front 50% or front 75, either way you go, there will be questions about like, okay, well, most of these historic homes aren't just one massing. Some are, but a lot of them are some massing with another little bit of massing in the back and then another little massing. It's like, well, if we go by percentage, then what are we talking about? The whole house? Are we talking about just the front portion? A lot of times the back portions aren't excavated, or they're just a crawl space or something like that. So I'm trying to think about like, well, what can we say is the line of delineation between yes and no for a meter on the side of a house. It gets a little complicated to just say it in plain language because of the fact that just saying a side elevation, what does that really mean when someone's out there looking at the house? And I was trying to think of what I would say would be okay. I mean, okay, and then so there's that question. And then the other thing I was thinking was that basically, I think that what I don't want to see is meters blocking character defining features of the house. So like, what would that be? I think in most cases that would be a basement window, because that's just kind of where in general, that's the kind of character defining features we have on these homes, windows, especially on side elevations. So,
well, David, I'd also add the water table on those too. Like you have a lot of little details right at the bottom, particularly in the brick. There's a little water table wash that occurs.
Yeah.
And then there's sometimes there's a rim joist, sometimes there's a little water feature that's made out of wood or brick,
right.
And then the foundation wall. And
Yes.
that's a character defining feature. Sometimes those meters are placed and it would obscure that detail.
That's a good point. These are getting put on posts, so at least they'll be away from the house. They won't be attached to that. I don't know, that might be a hard one to avoid.
I'm just highlighting it
where
because you
gotta
said
get
character defining features of the basement windows.
Yes.
So would you add that to the list? No, it's like, well, it's got to be separately treated.
Right. Yeah. So those are two factors. One is it's just difficult to define side elevation. Two is, I guess, basement windows are going to come into play in terms of, how far do we want this thing back from the front? And then I just think that maybe there's some consideration for if you have an existing meter somewhere that doesn't fit one of those things, like, so I think that at least it's worth a discussion of what consideration do we have for, did I freeze for a second there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was here and then all of a sudden I was there, but okay. My audio must have been fine. Anyway, what do we have consideration for just existing meter conditions? Do we take that into account at all, or do we totally disregard existing meters? Yes.
So yes, we totally disregard existing meters because this is only for meters in basements that have to be moved outside.
Okay. So the existing meter that's already outside is out of scope for this project and it's not an issue. Great.
Yeah.
The other consideration I've had is that I think that utility rooms are in basements. They're most likely in the center of basements if they're well placed, and they're most likely in the center of the main front massing of these historic homes, if you could generalize, kind of one type of historic home. So, to me, the 25%, if a homeowner is going to want it on the side, I feel like it's okay to have it closer to the middle of that main massing. It's going to be, especially if it's like behind the first basement window or something like that. If it's further rear than the first basement window, assuming there's a basement window like at the corner. Now, sometimes there's no basement window there. So then we'll have to say, well, it's got to be 10 feet or something. It's very, I started trying to figure this out, and I want to give them some simple rules, but it's not so simple. But I think that 25% of rear is, I want to be more, I guess, call it generous or something. I want to bring that forward at least. I just don't quite have the language yet to describe all the issues that I see.
Yeah. So one thing to keep in mind is that when I'm reviewing these, I'm still looking at all that stuff.
Okay.
Where character defining features are, where windows are, where driveways are, if bollards will be required, any historic features of the house. I hadn't thought to look at John's point about the water table, but mostly because these are, mounted on a stake, mounted on a post away from the wall. But I think behind the first basement window, if there's a basement window in the front half of the house, is a great rule of thumb for me, when I'm reviewing these things. And I do think that with the 25% number within the rear 25% of the side elevation of the building, I think that your idea is better, Dave, that it be a number from the front of the house rather than from the back of the house, because it's the front of the house that we're most concerned about. So either an X feet back or an X% of that elevation back. And you're right, I don't want to start counting second and third additions on the back of the house. In the length of the house, I want to look at the historic main house block.
Yeah. Okay.
But again, that's one of those things that you can make discretionary if you trust my discretion with it.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
also know that if I get something that I don't like, that seems to meet all of these, but it still doesn't smell right, I'm just gonna kick it up to you guys anyway.
I mean, I think that I'm good with saying that it shouldn't be in the front third of the house or something like that. I mean, if it's a 30-foot house, that's 10 feet. And then, you know, especially if Jill's looking at basement windows, like what I don't want to see is like, oh, slap it at 10 feet and then there's a basement window right there. But I think the good news is that the mechanical code doesn't allow them to put meters so close to windows anyway. So
Right.
that helps us.
Yeah.
But I would propose that number out there. I'm curious to, you know, what other people think. Maybe, you know.
I agree. I wouldn't want to put a hard number, a dimension on it, but a proportion or the percentage. And I was also thinking the front third. That's where majority of the character defining features I would assume to be. Now corner lot is different, but that at least gives us some breathing room. And gets you towards that kind of mid zone, kind of the core of the home that you were discussing earlier. Keeps it within range. And I would anticipate as well that Jill would raise flags if something was concerning.
So guys, tell me if this sounds right. Number 1 says the meter must be installed at the rear of the building or in another location not visible from the public right-of-way. If DTE shows that the foregoing are not feasible, the meter may be installed beyond the front 1/3 of the side elevation of the building, behind the first basement window, if applicable. I should say, and behind the first basement window. Does that read better?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on here that alarms you?
The only thing that alarms me is I just don't want to see you get in a position where they're like saying, oh, well, it met all these, like, it's clear to them that it's up to your discretion. Like that's.
Yeah. That's okay.
It is.
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah, okay.
It's fine. I mean, if they're trying to get away with something, I'll just make you guys review more of them. You know, it's so many of these are just perfunctory. I want to make them easy for the easy ones.
Yeah.
But I understand that there are going to be some middling ones that are a little bit weird that maybe will have to come to you and maybe won't. And then you'll definitely get the hard ones. But I think at least starting with this, you know, if this doesn't work or they're trying to do something that doesn't seem to be appropriate, I'll just come back next month and ask you to rescind this resolution or whatever you do. But DTE's been great to work with so far.
That's good.
Have you seen any hard ones?
Yeah. There are a few that we've been working on together that it's going to be tough to make DTE happy and the homeowner happy, and then you throw the HDC on top of it, and they're going to get a little bit weird. I'm having conversations right now with one of the city attorneys who helped me with this about what to do with lost causes, you know, where it's just doesn't seem like we're going to come to a resolution, and how to handle those.
Okay.
But we're not quite there yet.
This is probably obvious, but so number 4 will be updated appropriately as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I think they presented to us at some point, right? And then they tell us the overall program budget for the whole state was like 2 billion.
Something like that.
And it just made me think about all the community solar that we would have been able to install. Just give each homeowner a credit and allow them to go to community solar and just forget the meters entirely. Just a thought.
So that raises a good point, John, that this is the neighborhood that they're working in now. And next year's neighborhood will also include a different part of the Old West Side. So it's good to establish this stuff now.
All right, I am going to go back to my comment about existing. And so there is an issue with, it's not that the existing meter is exterior, but you have an existing penetration through your character defining, sill beam that then you have to patch. And I just wonder if you'll get any issues of homeowners maybe making a claim for their historic property saying, I don't want to put another hole in my sill beam and it's within the 10 feet or something like that. I'm just curious, maybe we'll get something like that. I don't think we have to add that. That seems like that'll be a case by case basis thing, but there is maybe an argument there for, well, if it's, I don't know. It may, especially if it's a brick building too, it goes through a brick or something, and that'll really be unsightly to repair. So difficult. We'll see if we get that issue.
I do expect that we'll end up with a few that end up in inappropriate places. I think that might just happen. Or at least are proposed in inappropriate places. Because there are some houses where these options are limited. But we're not quite there yet.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to move on from this item, G.
Well, does somebody want to
read
move
aloud
this resolution?
Yeah, would anyone like to move this resolution by reading it aloud?
No, I think the only thing we have to do is staff approval of the GPE gas meter move-out program.
Well, it is a resolution.
Yeah, it's a resolution. So
I don't know if you have to read it, but somebody needs to move it and somebody needs to support it.
That's correct. You have any support out there?
I'll support that. Did Commissioner White just make a motion?
That's correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
I second that. Support.
Okay, so that was moved by Commissioner White and then supported by Commissioner Rockland.
Wow.
So we'll move on to H, minutes.
Wait, Evan, you need to vote.
I apologize. We need
Getting
to
late.
vote. Yep, it is. We'll now move to a vote. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 All those not in favor, please say no. The motion carries.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. All right, so now we'll move on to H, minutes. This is the minutes for January 14th, 2021, and the minutes for February 22nd, 2021. Let's take a look at the minutes.
Did Mia get you both sets, or did she only give you January?
January.
I think it was just
I
January.
think it's only January.
I think so. Okay, so we're not
yep.
voting in February.
We're not voting February. We're just going to vote January 14th.
Without objection?
Sorry, Commissioner White?
Without objection? It's up to you.
Well, I'm just looking here to see if any of the commissioners have objection. Some of the commissioners still seem to be reading. I'm getting some thumbs up now. So without objection, the January 14th, 2021 HDC minutes have been approved. We'll move on to section I, reports from commissioners. Is there any commissioner that'd like to share something with the commission? I'm not seeing any. So we'll move on to J1. Assignments. Review. Wait, sorry. I saw something out of the corner of my eye.
Yeah, that was me, Evan.
Okay.
The review committee should be at 5 p.m. on April 8th.
Okay.
I'm sorry, on April 5 p.m., not noon. We're done with noon for a while because it'll be after daylight savings.
No,
Yay.
that's fine. So review committee will be held on Monday, April 5th at 5, the April 8th, 2021 regular meeting. Do we have any volunteers?
I can do 5.
Okay. Commissioner Fortner is.
She's been waiting a while.
Yes. And Commissioner Epperson. So those will be the 2 volunteers for the review committee.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Yeah. So then, now we're going to move on to K1, reports from staff. February 2020 HPC staff activities report is attached. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Thatcher? Saw a lot of gas meter on there.
Yeah, a lot of gas meters.
Yeah.
Wasn't a super exciting month. As part of my reports from staff, I do want to thank you all for coming to the retreat. That was helpful to me to work through some sticky issues, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Our pleasure.
This says apply film to storefront windows target store. Did they need to staff approve something for the window?
Yeah, they wanted to change the color on some of those existing storefront windows to match the new ones, and get rid of they have like a crackle finish, that Urban Outfitters, you know, ghetto chic look. So it's gonna look smooth again. Other stores have done it, and it
Weren't they
comes out looking pretty good.
replacing all of that?
No, just the main storefront. The other window systems were all staying.
Oh. I knew that when we were talking about it.
All right. Oh, so is that it? Okay. So then we're going to move on to L, concerns. Do we have any concerns? Yeah, Commissioner Beasley.
A random one. So with a lot of the storefronts on the, I guess the Main Street area, Main Street Historic District, where folks are putting up the tents out in front for these little false sense of security igloos. They're cutting holes in their storefronts to put in electrical wires. Like I saw one on, it was on Washington, I think. No, it was on Liberty. And it was right next to Cafe. It was near the Cafe Zola area. I can't remember it in detail, but they just cut like a giant hole in the storefront. And it was probably a non-contributing storefront at some point, but it was replaced with wood. So they at least kind of cared about it. And instead of cutting between the trim and the paneling, like in between picking one or the other, they went right between both. and just cut like a decent sized hole where the wire is just kind of popping out of it. And it just made me think, like, I don't know if that should be okay, especially on these storefronts, because they're just going to come back and patch it with who knows what later on. So I'm bringing that up just because I saw it. And,
Is the electric going out to the huts?
Yes.
Like for heaters?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it was like, I forgot what that one is called. It's like the Stray Cat or something like that. It's got the yellow neon sign that we approved. It's like a bar that you go upstairs to. Is that ringing a bell?
Commissioner Rothman knows that one. What's that called?
I don't know. It's like anyway. I'd have to go look. I'd have to do some street view. Look around again. I was walking down.
It's right next to the alley.
I was definitely walking down. Yeah, it was. And I was walking down Liberty.
Oh. Oh, you're on
And
Liberty. Okay.
And
All
it was
right.
before
Well,
I got to like Old Town and Pacific Rim.
Yeah, there's a bar right
Alley
at
bar?
the alley. Yeah, I don't know what
Alley
that's
bar.
called.
Alley bar.
Alley,
Yes,
yeah.
alley
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, alley bar.
So it's at
I
alley
thought that was
bar.
empty for some reason.
It's got igloos up front.
Okay. I'll take a look next time I'm downtown. Thanks, John.
Good concern. Any other concerns from the commission?
Oh.
Okay. Now we're going to go on to M1, communications. I see no communications this month. So we're going to go on to N, adjournment. I now adjourn the March 11th, 2021 HDC meeting. Nice work, everybody. That was a good